Welcome back in, 2 o'clock, couple hours left on a busy afternoon as the bounce continues. We were worried what was going to happen there on the way down a little bit, but nice recovery here. Back to the upside we go. Here's a look at how things stand right now. About 1.5% for the S&P. Back to the upside, 1.3% for the Dow, 1.2% for the NASDAQ. Here in Toronto, positive as well, 1.15%, 1% for Brazil. A big move down this afternoon for crude. Now 2% in negative territory. When I sat down this morning, it was almost 1% in positive territory. Bitcoin and Ethereum also chopping around in the red at this point as well. There's a look at the board. That's the S&P at this point, about 1.4 to the upside. We're dealing with industrial shares, still big moves to the upside, including that's Lockheed Martin up more than, or was more than 9%, 8.94, currently 11.9%. For CCL today on that debt raise headline we talked about. RCL, NCLH is here as well, 8.5% back in positive territory. Domino's, an interesting move there. There was a giant volume spike. We did come back down off the highs a little bit, but 2.9 still on the high side. Moderna's lower today, 4%. DXCM lower today, 2.7% on a downgrade. Everything else, though, nicely green, as you can see. We're going to talk a lot about these ones up here. This is the tech group. What a day for Salesforce off that headline we brought to you in the pre-market. If you're with us this morning at 8:30, make sure you join us every day. About 5% still for CRM. That's Micron. Right above it, Intel, both 2% in the red. Lagging the rest of the semiconductors right now, SEDG and Enphase lead the way. But nice green board to kick off the final couple hours here. Hope your afternoon is going well. Hope your day is going well. It has been a wild ride. What a sell-off we had coming out of the morning all the way down to basically support from the past couple of days. We get a nice bounce back higher now. We'll kick things off with a look back at what was available to you as far as opportunities this morning. If you joined us in the pre-market, make sure you get the watch list. And then you come join us at 8:30 every morning. We get you set and ready for the open. Neil's going to lead the way today with a look at one of his trades from this morning.
Thank you. Yes, Trade of the Day. It's going to be brought to you, as always, by Day Trade the World and brought to you by Tesla. Oh my goodness, there were a lot of shorting opportunities this morning across the board. I was looking at some Silvergate, which had earnings today. Tesla was a bit more of a tricky story because there were a lot of trades where it had that big move at the open, and if you were focused on something else, it was difficult to catch this one. What I love about it, it's a great learning experience. We've already had monster moves in the last couple of sessions. I got a 60-minute up here because I wanted to be able to sort of show you where we're coming from back in that 240 range, and then how we've had that nice consolidation going into today off of about 225 marked off and this 227 top. So when we had that big rejection at 240, the last time it popped and dropped, we had this lower high that got put in there. And then in yesterday's trade, you essentially challenged that top in the late trade and then sort of heading back into the downside. So we know exactly what we're looking for. So when this happens and you're not in this pop and fade, look, that's where I was shorting Intel. That's where I was shorting, not Coinbase, Silvergate. So at 9:30, I'm not in this bad boy. And all of a sudden, we get the move and it checks up right at that 225 to 227 area. And I remember there was a conversation Luke and I were sort of having going back and forth. It's like, I don't know, Tesla could still be finding support, could be along. And I was just saying to myself, no, man, it's beneath that 27, beneath that channel that we got here, holding, it's not a long unless it breaks back out of that level. If we're holding below there, and I see it start off like this, you know after the runs we've had, it just feels like that's going to be more of a short. So I wasn't able to really catch 25s. It was kind of tricky as I was looking at that, looking to get entry points, because you had this candle is a 3-minute chart. You get a couple of death candles, this little bit of a bounce, and then here's that retest of the low. It's kind of hard to see, but it makes this little low, retests that low, and then tries to get back above it. And this is where I'm thinking to myself, if this little wick bottom doesn't lead to a break back out and test of 227, then this is a short. Because it trapped the shorts, and when Tesla's going to pull that V shape, that's usually where you get that big jam into the upside. When that didn't happen, it sort of reclaimed that low. I worked into the position. It ends up trying to test it here again at 225. And this was pie in my face because I was looking at that 25 to 27 channel and looking for this test to fail somewhere around here and be able to catch some actual 25s. Wasn't nearly aggressive enough, didn't get any more, end up scalping some out thinking, oh, now it's going to give me that fill. Don't get them. You couldn't get any real shares above that 225 mark. It would tick above, it would slam below. I know Luca had some trouble getting into it as well, but thankfully we still had something on board when it made the bigger capitulation down. That's what I was holding out for. At that point, I think I even said, we're talking 220 and then trailing stop. I've always thought that you should not care about how many shares you have. You should think about what the move potential gives you. Now, would I have liked to have added more and you could scalp on the way out? Sure. But once you've broken that channel in this fashion, there's no point to me getting anything out at 222. You're just sort of firing shots off into the air. I wanted to give it a shot to break that 220 cleanly if we got a really bad day and you head down to 215 and then moving a trail. We end up getting trailed out, but the best thing about a trend, you can always get back into said trend. All that happened is you popped into what was VWAP. We're not going to get 25s here, but you see a wick high right through about 223, tests at 24, which is about our previous entry, fails it, short the consolidation, play it to the low of the day. The mistake that got made there was, while I was then willing to hold it, the previous trade, through the low with a trailing stop. In this particular case, I didn't believe enough in the short, got it all out, snagged the second $2 win. You can see it did make that final break of 220. That will be the thing I have to do a little bit better of. A, getting maybe a few more entries in that consolidation, but B, that second follow through. The first follow through, I was willing to believe in it and trail it. The second follow through, not quite willing to do so. It's still trending downside. There was some news with regards to Twitter that is causing some pressure for Tesla. But the story goes, we don't always show you like what's the biggest win. I mean, okay, Silvergate was a bigger win for me. That being said, Tesla, it trended downside, but look how far it had already moved by the time you're getting into the trade. Sometimes you're not in that big mover and you're starting to think about the reversal. Other times you have to join the trend at what seems like a suboptimal price and you've still got to find a way to get into it and structure a trade around it. That's why it's your trade of the day here, as always brought to you by Day Trade the World. Scan that QR code below. Start your trading journey today.
Always an exciting day with Tesla moving around here. We'll get into this a little bit more because it's an interesting kind of move for Tesla today in relation to what Twitter did. But also want to talk about Rivian coming up here with this headline on Amazon. If you missed it, Amazon going to invest €1 billion in converting their European fleet into electric vehicles. Rivian didn't really do much. Anyway, make sure you grab that every single day, as I mentioned. That's the link to the watch list, guys. You just need your email address, and you come join us at 8:30 every single morning in the pre-market. Here is Twitter now, not really doing a heck of a lot. Volume definitely dying off down here. There was the initial spike on that note suggesting the company has frozen stock options for employees, suggesting this deal could be a matter of time before it gets done. I mean, Elon was tweeting pictures with him and Kanye and Trump this morning, suggesting it was only a matter of time, I guess, before all three bought social media platforms. But if you haven't seen that, go check it out on Elon's Twitter feed today. But yeah, another move to the upside for Twitter. As Neil was mentioning there, Tesla shrugged that off and said, oh, well, nothing really to see here. But anyways, we'll keep our eyes out for anything more on Twitter this afternoon. I want to mention this as well real quick before we get into things. Canadian Solar, just some Canadian content, because why not? They have an energy storage project, I should say, in California that has come online today. So a huge move to the upside here, 2.5%, trying to hold some key support for CSIQ. And then let's go into Rivian here, now up 3.4%. There was a bit of volume that came in when this headline came across. But again, if you missed it, Amazon going to, here, I'll grab the link. You know what, why don't we bring in, actually, here it is. That's fine. There we go. So this is the story. This is right on their website. This is Amazon.com's website. So they're going to invest €1 billion into electrifying their European transportation network. Obviously, with their prior arrangement with Rivian, that would probably indicate to be a beneficial story for Rivian. Guys, Arun is here, by the way, is what I was going to get to. It's always great to have Arun in the building this afternoon.
Surprise.
Surprise. Well, I don't remember if we specifically said, but I think anyone that watched the morning show, Sean couldn't make it today. He's looking after the family. We saw, if you're following along, Gia did fantastic. I don't know exactly where she finished in the race, but I saw a video of her crushing it down the backstretch. She's doing cross country, so Sean taking care of the kids because one of the boys isn't feeling all that well. So he's being dad today. Hopefully he'll be back tomorrow. Rivian is pretty bullish. I want to start there. I'm still in some Intel. It's actually a re-entry into Intel, and you'll see I picked up some BAC after, and I guess we'll get into Goldman Sachs, but because I broke my rule in Goldman Sachs, and you're going to see how hilarious it was if I had just not broken that rule. It's pretty much exactly what I would have wanted if I wasn't in during the conference call. But Rivian, it just made this attempted break at about 3180, kind of hugging VWAP here as the market is hovering on a lower high and threatening a rollover. So if this is going to be a bullish name, then I want it holding VWAP, maybe take a consolidation, or just simply wait for it to break out. The whole day I was sort of saying to myself, don't short this because it's diddling in the middle, so I didn't short that. Mistake, anything you shorted was good. But also from here, either get a good price in consolidations if we go sideways, or allow it to really make a more significant break at that even 32. I think it bears watching, Rivian. That's a pretty significant deal. You're up 3 times what the market is here. And off the bottoms, you have a pretty significant base off that double bottom 31, which is gorgeous as well. So holding VWAP, I like the longs in front of 3140, Rivian, if you can hold that, or allow it to break that 32. Don't want to diddle too much in the middle, but I'll pop myself on this bit. Rivian looks pretty exciting to me. Not a lot of, there were some good longs off the bottom. Apple was pretty good there, but in terms of currently sitting in them, I'm in BAC, which broke VWAP, but that's about it. I was in a Roblox long after the shorts this morning. That stopped out. So Rivian, be patient with it. We've seen these inside type days before.
Yeah, the thing with Rivian though is that the fact that it broke 30, I think that opens the door for everyone thinking it's going to be a short. Some people jumped the gun a little bit here, and yeah, it went like $1 and then snapped right back. That shows tremendous strength in its ability to retake 30. So now that we're at 31.75, 32, I would look for any sort of movement down towards 31. If you get some stability around 31, why not take that shot again? 30 is showing you that it's going to be decently there to support it. So upside target would be 33 to 34, and then I would try to price the risk in around underneath 31.50 towards 31. That makes technical sense for me anyways. At this price at 31.75, I mean, we're not too far away. We're $2 away from the top. We're close to $2 from where I would put my stop. It's a one-to-one risk. It's right in the middle. Like Neil said, diddling in the middle. That's what it's doing right now. So it's just what the market's doing the exact same thing. So when the market's doing this and Rivian's doing this, we're just gonna be patient, right? No point. But market off. Come back to it, because it will come back to this price at some point. Just come back to it when it does, and then go from there.
We'll see if this gets going here this afternoon. As I mentioned, kind of strange. There wasn't more of a move, or more of a reaction at least. The company wasn't named in that story, but one would assume anyways it would benefit them. Netflix here was on the watch list this morning. We were talking about earnings coming up aftermarket tonight, if you missed it. It's given it all back and then some, back negative anyways after this nice gap this morning.
So I said this in the morning show. We have a fan here which is like blowing. It's too hot in the office. So I don't know if that's what's getting picked up on the mic, or maybe it's the mic placement. But if it is the fan, apologies. But it's like 26 degrees up in here, which whatever that is in 27 degrees Celsius. You guys can do the conversion. It's a little hot. That's why I had to ditch my sweater. What's interesting, I had a conversation. Now I'm getting off topic, but it happens. I had a conversation with a trader. If you know Steve Cohen, their trading floors, they used to always have it ice cold. Not ice cold, but cold, because you're a little bit more sharp. When you get a little too hot, it can be difficult to keep your head straight and think on your feet. Like I would always prefer when working, if I got to rub my hands like I'm a little too chilly, that's not the end of the world. But when it gets too hot, man, it's just, you're trying to think, you're trying to be attentive, you're trying to keep that mind clear, and that can definitely cloud your judgment. Luke and I both were thinking, I know we were both thinking short in this. He had a trade on Netflix. I was looking for a test of the top where maybe you'd get to that 255 on the daily chart, and this is what I'm talking about, that 255 resistance. If you were here in the afternoon yesterday, everyone was looking at that 250. We cleared it in the pre-market. It seemed like you were destined for a bit of a test, and then 9:30 happened and went right to 250 and then flushed. I was shorting Silvergate and Intel and pretty much everything but this. And then since then, the only thing positive is it took the previous resistance level at that 238 from last week and then managed to dip at that price. So it got to 238 as a bit of a hold. Feels like it wants to roll over again. I'm very likely to favor shorts in front of 245 on this stock. Probably has to get to 45, 46, but I'd favor fading any move to the upside in the afternoon. As a matter of fact, you get back below the 242, and I can start looking at the shorts down at that price. But 38 does feel like support for Netflix. Remember, they do have earnings after market, so everything I'm talking about here is simply going to be a day trade. Like we're not holding positions into earnings or making a bet on earnings. It's just what do I think is going to happen from here till the rest of the day, guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, going back to the fan comment, it doesn't matter how hot it is or how cold it is. I'm keeping a hoodie on. For anyone who's used to like certain tendencies, I'm definitely one of them. I don't care what the temperature is. A hoodie is necessary for me to trade for whatever reason. That's just what I do. So it's hot, yes. Am I sweating? A little bit, but am I wearing a hoodie? Still.
You can't be comfortable, dude.
I'm okay with it, actually.
No, you're not.
I'm perfectly fine. To be fair, though,
you're
Netflix isn't doing, Netflix, like you said, it's bouncing off 238, previous highs. Market's not doing a whole lot. Are you really going to step into Netflix? Do I need to worry that much about it to take the hoodie off? No. Because, I mean, if earnings are coming out soon, you know there's going to be some unusual activity right at the end with volume coming from the programs and anyone's trying to set up and maybe trying to create some sort of a position before the earnings come out for whatever reason. I mean, everyone has their own reasons, right? So I wouldn't touch Netflix at this point. It's slow. It's 2:17 in the afternoon, and it's done its move already. And like the market too, it's done its move already. Now it's just going sideways. Just wait for the earnings to come out. You know it's going to be a great thing to trade tomorrow. So why not trade it when it's going to be primed and ready to go for you? Whether it's to the upside through 252 or through the downside through to 238, wide ranges, just work with it. Come back to it tomorrow and let this thing do whatever it's going to do. If you really want some activity, if you really want to, step on the gas and like thread the needle a little bit, come back at like 350 and then trade the final 10 minutes and see if you make money. I'm going to say you won't, but I mean, give it a shot because that's
cold.
No, because it is difficult.
It is
extremely difficult.
Earnings,
Earnings are coming out and imbalances are out, there's a ton of activity there. So if you really want to roll the dice, that's the time to do it. Right now, it's not doing a whole lot.
There was a big move, if anyone missed it, earlier on this one. Krispy Kreme popped up. What time was that? It was just after we finished at 11, I think. Big move to the upside, up to almost $14 for D-Nut. Back to the downside, but I just noticed it was starting to pick up a little bit again. McDonald's looking at, they haven't committed to it, but looking at possibly selling Krispy Kreme donuts in McDonald's restaurants across the U.S. So heads up on D-Nut as well. Roblox, meanwhile, back to the upside here as well, trying to, anyways, hold some key levels. Another one that kind of faded the initial move this morning, held yesterday's support level, and now we're trying to head higher. What a day it was yesterday, though, if you were doing something else. 20% over here to the upside yesterday. Here we are kind of chopping around going sideways, guys, today.
Yeah, and if there's an excuse for, it's not an excuse. I didn't have Netflix, but Roblox gave you a better opportunity that if you didn't get the first rollover, you could still at least do that short off the highs. And you came in, I was like, this is too much too far. But I did want to short it more off of those pre-market tops at 44.5. If it broke that, I was looking 45 even, 47 even. I was really just looking to take that short, given how far it had moved. And that's all we're talking about. That's why I'm trying to show you that. And then all it did is roll over through 44, right at the open, flush. You come down, you hit 43. It's already moved a buck, but then it gives you that second opportunity, dollar scalps, and then come right back in. I end up holding through the break of the low of the day, but then it broke this like 2 or 3 times when the market was going. And this is similar to Tesla, right? Like at that point in the day, I was able to hold on to a couple of other names that I just liked a little bit better. Maybe we'll get to those. I don't know if we're talking Silvergate. I guess we'll talk about the chips. But this just kept on wick breaking 43 and then slamming back up. It did it one too many times for my liking. It felt relatively strong at that point. I saw what it did yesterday, so I did trail out of it. And then, of course, it proceeds to make a fresh low. I'm now thinking actual longs on this. I had one long off VWAP that stopped out here just before we came on. I threw the stoppage and traded the day. But if we're above 43, I want to look for some longs and potential breaks. The market's got to go here. we're starting to roll over again in the overall market. If that happens, you might have to throw this out the window and then jump back into shorts beneath that 43. So Roblox still up 2%, but that's not necessarily telling you the story of the day because there was a lot of sell action at the open.
Roblox is, when you look at the chart, it's, and this is a daily chart because I'm not even going to go, Neil showed you the intraday. I'm looking at the daily going, okay, what could it potentially do? And you're looking at it, and, okay, it's at 44, upside up to maybe 45.5 before it hits the top end where it resisted back in September. And the bottom end support level that we just broke out of is going to be 40. So we're too far away from the bottom end and we're kind of close to the top. Well, I mean, you could justify it, but it's got some space to the upside. But would it be worth the risk to take the long at this point? I'm going to argue not. So Roblox, although it's up almost 2% on the day, this is the action you're getting. It's 2%, but it's sideways at this point. So I would just let it be. I mean, yesterday was obviously the pre-market move, and then now we're just kind of consolidating. Usually when you get a consolidation like this, it's a good thing for an extension, right? After the fact that it doesn't come back down is a good thing. So let's see if it actually gets into that 45.5, 46 area, and then you would consider the idea of a short. Would you touch it right now? Absolutely not. I would just let it consolidate. The best trades are going to be the ones that you can take time and time again. Breakouts, trend following, whatever, however you approach it. But this one here is going sideways. So when it's sideways, you just step away.
All right, let's talk about Goldman Sachs here, wrapping up the earnings for big banks over the past couple of days. GS, I mean, it's trying to hold. I'll show you the chart in a second here. But anyways, here's another headline coming through from the CEO in an interview this afternoon talking about a reasonable chance the U.S. will be in recession in 2023. I think that's a fair statement. Goldman, though, unveiling also a revamp as profit was to the downside. So they're going to divide the entire business into 3 separate units, which investors initially seemed to like on that news today, but back to the downside at this point. Overall, the numbers were better than expected, but still on the downside. You had to work into this, but if you picked out that 318 level this morning on the long, it ended up being okay. Here we are rolling over right now, guys, for Goldman.
I'll do you one better, or maybe I think it's one worse than that. And actually, Roku's making some moves here. Watch out for that stock. Trying to take out a lower high. 53.80, it looks like it's trying to break. I thought I saw someone in the chat mention it. I happen to have Roku up on one of my charts above here watching it. But this was the level on the daily that you're breaking away from, 316. And if you're watching the morning show, you might have heard me complain and whine and you-know-what about the fact that the conference call was going to be at 9:30 right at the open. So I said, don't trade the stock during the conference call. Wait until it's wrapping up. And then if you see a trade that you like, jump into it. So what does Neil do? Well, Neil tries to early buy a dip into 316 during the call. The second I get filled, the bid essentially evaporates. And when I say it evaporates, I'm not waiting for 316 because the call's on. I'm not sure what's being said in the call. So I'm essentially just getting out with a tight stop right then and there saying, what in the hell did you just do, Neil? Wait until the bloody call is over because you're going to get that whipsaw action. So it stops me out, bounces off what level? The breakout price, which is 316. Now, obviously, I wasn't going to be using that necessarily as my stop. I actually had a $2 stop that ends up getting slipped by like 30 or 40 cents. But what you can do in this spot is see that it holds that breakout level on the daily, it calms down and consolidates, and at 10 o'clock when it's wrapping up, you're getting the same price that it broke out right here, that 319 breakout right before the market opened at about 920 is where it broke out from. I was buying that for a dip into this previous low right at the open. The open range bottom was 317. So I was buying the 19 to 17 for a range trade, but while the call was on, it filled me and ran my stop in like the same second. But after everything is wrapped up, you're then getting the same 319 into the high of the day. It couldn't break 25s, and then it gets out. But there's something to be said about patience, and this is more than about patience. Unless you were sitting there listening to the call, which I've done before, like way back in the day when you would dial into these things, you're trading one stock, you're listening, you have an idea what you want to hear, momentum-wise, upside or downside. Unless you're doing that, allow things to settle down. That's what I did not do. It's been a short ever since. I'm over in BAC right now because you can see Goldman's given up VWAP. It's given up that support at 316 that I like. So I've had to walk away from it. BAC had a fantastic report themselves. It's still relatively strong. It held support at the bottom. It's now breaking above VWAP. I haven't really done any scalping in this range, which I should be because it's holding 70s here and then covering. I should be covering some when it gets up to the high 80s so that I can get back on the bid and start bidding in those 70s instead of the 81s that I have, because we've seen this time and time again. If it's going to be an inside day, if it's going to be an inside afternoon, I should say, then I can be buying VWAP. And then if it doesn't break out from here, then at least I'm paying myself off this 10 to 15 cent scalp range. I only took a quarter out there. I'll get some offers in front of 35 as well. But nothing against Goldman Sachs. I thought it was a pretty solid report. BAC just a little bit stronger this afternoon. So learn from my mistake. If you're a day trader, those conference calls can be a you-know-what. I always prefer earnings in the aftermarket because then you have all the information you need and can prepare for your trading instead of trying to react when you only have half of the puzzle.
Yeah, if there's one tip that you can give, it's don't be a Neil. Don't do a Neil, which is don't try to trade during conference calls. It is a dangerous game to play because you don't know what's being said. Even if you are paying attention to the conference call, you don't know why the reaction, you're going to be able to process it as fast as the programs are processing it when the market is moving or the stock is moving. So in today's case, the only trade I can see on Goldman Sachs, first off, I'm going to actually mark it off on the daily. I want to actually show you guys this on the daily. The fact that we've been kind of stalling around 305, 310, then we finally get that move above there today, and we're coming back down into that 315. Although it's been I guess a sell-off from the top, I still think this is somewhat positive. We just got to kind of get closer to that 310 area to make the risk make sense of it. But the intraday trade is not even that. It's just the short. It's the double top short against the 324s. You got that first push into 323 and change. You got that secondary move up that times out with when the market also turned around. They put in a new high and then instantly failed right back through that 320s. The fact that we bounced around this 321, 322 multiple times and then broke 320 opens the door for a short. Then you get some out at 316 and then you work your way down, and now it's just going sideways. Although it's negative since that point, it's still close enough, or a little bit more. If it gets a little bit more further down, it actually opens up the long, I think. So for now, sideways action confirms the short. If you go a little bit more and then get some positive reinforcement down towards that 310, I would look for the long.
All right, we'll talk about some of the chip makers here, as I showed you, to kick things off here at 2 o'clock, back in positive territory, but there's a few that are lagging the overall market. I wanted to mention this so quickly, this drug, Bright Minds, starting to pop up here a little bit again, some volume coming back into this if you missed it earlier. I remember yesterday there was that note, U.S. Senator Booker talking about legalization of cannabis. Apparently today he was shifting over to psychedelics. So this one, drug and mind med to the upside today in a big way. So just watch out for drug. But I want to mention Intel specifically because we got that Mobileye. I mean, it's kind of news suggesting that the valuation and IPO target price is going to be much lower than first anticipated when that does eventually come to market, but still going to be a monster IPO. I wasn't able to at any point today determine an actual date on that IPO, but I'll keep looking. Anyways, INTC notably weak on that, it would appear today.
Well, we know it's coming. Look, it's coming soon, whether it's this week, next week. I don't think it's this week, but there's indications that it's going to be coming soon. Mobileye is a lot like, I was kind of comparing it to Palantir in some ways. And what I mean by that is they've been around for 20 years as a division in Intel, and they're finally coming public. They do tons of revenue, over $1 billion in revenue, but it still actually doesn't make any money. So they've had the valuation's getting crushed because the market's getting crushed, quite frankly. But I came in thinking Intel just, this was the one I was looking at right at 930 for the short. So as much as Tesla gave that 230 pop and then it dropped, it was Intel that I was watching for this triple top here. It tried to take 27, got to 26.98. So the second it does that, rejects 27 even. This is 26.88, which was the pre-market high. It retakes the pre-market high to the downside. I'm in. I'm in at 85 and my out is at 70. Once we get, actually I waited till past 1-to-1 to start getting out shares, and then it was a scalp to 26.50 with the second half of the trade just holding for dear life with a trail. I end up probably, I should have moved my trail one last time. When we broke 25.75 and touched 25.50, that's where I probably should have tightened it up to 75. But I left it here when it pulled back to this consolidation above 25.90. End up taking about $1 on that trip. You'll take that out every single day. Like, it's a $26 stock. $1 on Intel is like $10 on a $260 stock. Now that it's holding this range, I'm actually back in. Working off of this 26 level just for a scalp short, trying to take this 20 penny range, and then hold on to some if it retakes those lows. Intel's been getting beaten up. It's one of the uglier daily charts that you are going to see. It has made a pretty decent bottom off 24.5. So I will respect if we do make the break at 27 on Intel, the momentum into that break has plenty of room to the upside. But until it happens, I'm looking for shorts in front of that level. So I'll probably be looking for shorts in front of it tomorrow as well. But there is, at some point, you do a long enough consolidation off the bottom, and you got to start thinking about that jailbreak to the upside. Maybe it'll get some positive headwinds if the Mobileye has a particularly good day. But IPO of a big company that's not making money, I'm skeptical how that one's going to go. That being said, I'll probably still have that opening trade long the day it comes out, then look for the shorts later.
Yeah, you look at this chart and it's like Intel hasn't been on my radar for a long time. And to be fair, even today, I probably wouldn't have looked at it because you play with your strengths, right? And my strength is not to range trade this. And the only way you could have made money on Intel is range trading and be like, oh, it's the top end of the range. Let's go for a short and then play the bottom end as well. So you're looking at 27 and then the bottom, you're looking at 25, 25 as the potential support level. So I would argue that it's going to be very hard to actually, if you're trying to swing something, it's going to be very hard to position into something where it makes sense. Intel's not my cup of tea, so we'll just leave it for the range traders that are strong at trading within the range. I'm going to look for breakouts or something that looks more solid. You guys may have seen just now I popped into AMD. So that's the long that I just picked up. Why am I going after AMD? Well, we were talking about Intel chips. AMD for me is, it just bounced off of its bottom end of the range, back to the middle, establishing support around that 58 mark. I can put up $1 in risk towards 57 and see if we can actually get towards the top end around 59, 59.50. So why not take that shot there on AMD? That's my justification for AMD. And it just makes more sense for me because although it's in a range, it's an actually established range that I can actually play off a bounce on. So it's a little different from Intel, but for me, I can justify this long better than Intel. So here we are with AMD, and we'll see how this one goes. Right now, we're at 58.13. It is coming back a little bit. We'll see how this market goes after that.
That'll be it for the rundown, guys. But just a couple, I mentioned Roku pretty quick. There. I thought somebody said it in the chat. I happen to have this one up as well because I was looking for things that were showing some strength. If the market was going to make another leg up, we want some exposure into the long side that isn't just sitting in BAC there. But bouncing on VWAP, it just now tried to take out this 53.80, rejected 54. So what I want to see is, a higher low could be bouncing off VWAP, and then maybe use like a 53.60 long in there if it bounces VWAP. But if it bounces here, it's got a clean sort of 54 break on it for a scalp, and then try to hold that as well. The other thing worth watching, and I know we get bored with this Twitter over and over again. Yeah, there was another piece of news. I think Brendan probably already mentioned it, but if you're just tuning in now or you didn't hear, Twitter's suspending the stock, the accounts of employees, caused this spike to the upside. Once again, the last time it had this kind of a spike, Twitter got to 52, rejected 52, and sort of started pulling back. So 52 is on the offer. There was big size there. Trader Prab was mentioning that on the midday show. I tried to scalp. Like, I was sitting here 70s. I got some 80s. I reloaded at 60s. I got some 70s. I reloaded at 50s and lost. And then, of course, and the 40s ended up being the bottom. I think it's holding VWAP pretty nicely. That was a previous high. So I want to buy dips into this 51.40 and just maybe play this 51.40 to 50 range so you can get 60s, 70s, and 80s. Not try to buy the tops, which is what I was doing earlier, but wait patiently down around some of those lows. At all times, I would have a stop beneath VWAP because one piece of news, then you get a rug pull. I hate when they pull the rug on you in this stock, and it's very headline sensitive, so you always want to trade it with a stop. The 52 breakout's going to be crowded. But if it does it on news, if it just does it organically, I want that 52 break as well. The deal price is 54.20. There's still obviously some hurdles to be covered before it gets through there, but I think it's worthy of being on the radar here today. Just took another leg there on our good friend BAC, which the home runs this morning were all to the short side. I do feel like if we're able to break out of this consolidation on the ES, we're still up 1% on the day. Like, you break the consolidation upside, you want some exposure to retesting those highs. I get it, the trend is to the downside, but you want some exposure to those highs. Oh, give me a break, drug. So Brendan just mentioned DRUG on some of that talk. And I'm like, okay, I like this 130 area. I'll sit in front, grab a long in front of it, and then throw a stop beneath 130 and risk 4 cents. And then it does a death candle on me and said 5 cents, actually because I slipped an extra penny. The 5 cents happens like that in the blink of an eye. So it looks like a bit of a death candle. This is the issue with the stocks like this. If you're going to do it, I always trade it with a stop so that happens and it continues down. You're not just taking a 20 or 30% hit, which you don't want to do. But I'm not happy about that one at all. If it does try to go sideways, maybe I should be waiting for a longer consolidation instead of just sitting on the bid. Like, if it consolidates sideways, take a break out of that consolidation. If I trade it again, that's what I want to do. So back to old Intel and BAC, as it looks like Drug is trying to play some games around these levels.
Drug just drugging on along. Well, I messed that one up.
Dragging on?
Dragging that. I was trying to say drugging on along. But anyways, for you guys can see my AMD position, but I really, to me, that's probably the only equity position I'm probably going to take. I mean, I got a couple things marked off that may pop off. CRM above 155.25. And Goldman Sachs if we get back up to 317.5, but I'm not going to really touch those two. I mean, those are just on the radar. But for me, the futures trade, we talked about this earlier this morning. This is a 5-minute chart in the future. We talked about this, and I had said, okay, how am I going to mark off the levels? I'm going to mark off 40 is what I said at the top. 40 is the level I was going to work with, and depending on how we moved, right? If we had a decent stability, I'd go for the long. I have one trade on the futures all day today. And it's not the long. That's the thing. I mark off levels, but doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to play in front of them or work with them just because it's in front of it, right? The market was showing you enough sell-side activity that as soon as 37.40 goes, you can see my offers there. I actually went for the short. So 37.40 was the first one. Realized I can actually get a better price on it. Went to 37.45. And then what do you see here is going to be the rest of that trade, which is 37.45. That's your short. First exit is at 15, so you got to lock in about 30 points there, and then on the trail back out. So you're locking about 22 to 23 points on average between the two exits, and that's it. That's all I need to do. And the futures just fell off, taking AMD with it. Yeah. Okay, as the market falls off now, there must be some news, so maybe Brendan has something on the radar at some point. Before now, AMD getting rocked, and we'll just kind of wait this one and see if we can't find some shorts, maybe some shorts or even some cheap longs at this point.
Yeah, Apple, guys, big move down for Apple here. Apparently, they've cut iPhone 14 production less than 2 weeks after its debut. That's according to the information.com. Again, Apple cutting iPhone 14 Plus, specifically, production less than 2 weeks after its debut. So big spike there, downside for Apple.
See, the thing about these, we've seen these talks before. And every single time, Apple's managed to rally off of them at some point. Now, obviously, nothing wrong with the fact that it literally just gave me the win in Intel to that downside. BAC goes back to flat. I just got ticked into Rivian at 30 in front of 31.50. But my first look was 143 on Apple was an absolute wall that it bounced off of. I was able to scalp $1.50 at lunchtime. That's exactly where we just bounced on those news. So that's a pretty big line in the sand. We get through this at 143 and things get really ugly to that downside here. So that's the line. If we break it, I want to be out of this and start hunting for some shorts. But whenever you get like a liquidity vacuum on news, I always say zoom out. In this particular case, you would have been able to find that as already the low of the day, but you can also look back to yesterday's resistance. So yesterday's resistance, today's bottom, that's where you look to pick up something on any kind of a news-based play, because what happens is the algos pull their bids, because everyone's disseminating the news and reacting to it. So they're no longer making a market. Where are they going to come back in and start making a market? A lot of times it's where like human traders be like, "Ooh, I like to buy down there. I want to snap in." Somebody big does. Yeah, I'll go start following it. They make a market again, and you get a bit of a pop. So can it hold a second time? That's what I want to test here. I'd say 42.85, which is afternoon tops. That's what I would give this to. Thank you very much for. We'll see if it works out, but I was waiting for the dip buy in Rivian. That news on Apple. It tanked the entire market. So I was looking for that support on Rivian. I was able to get the dip, but I'm going to start scalping this out. Maybe not as aggressive in terms of holding the longs here in that little bit of a dip, just given the way that came in. If we start following through to the downside, which I just got filled on Apple, by the way, then it could get real ugly real fast. You saw what happened at the end of the day. I was holding an Apple. I had some Apple shorts that I didn't even hold on to, and now here comes the second push. Like, you're now starting to really retest some of those bottoms. I want to get some of my intel out there, but Apple just retested that low. I'm in at 10s, 11s, check that, and then instantly bouncing right through previous day's bottom, losing 20 cents on the trade, and then snapping right back up. So maybe I don't want to go back to the Apple wall, get something more stable. I need to see us maybe go sideways off this, pick a direction off this level instead of just trying to stop everybody out. If you got a short, you want to hold on to it. So what I've done over on Intel is I've got one, like I just got filled at 70s. I got one more bid in front of the low of the day, and then I just want to hold on to this for dear life. I'll short pops over here on Intel, but not a good look. Watch out for like some sympathy plays, like some of the chips already in Intel, but like Qualcomm, probably under a little bit of pressure. Even Tesla just rolled over through 220, guys. Lots of this making some crazy moves down in, and you got to start looking for some shorts. So I was thinking about Roblox for some longs. I no longer like that. Apple has changed just about everything, unless it can hold that 143, which, by the way, it's now gone. Now got to start looking shorts beneath that level.
See, my thing with that is just because the market's going down, for me, not necessarily. Apple's a big issue, but not necessarily just because the market's going down, I'd look for shorts. I'm actually looking for longs, to be fair. Apple's a problem just because it's the largest weight in the index. So obviously when Apple has an issue, market goes with it. But at the same time, if we pull up the daily on Apple, it's got support down here. Futures market has shown that the 20s are going to act as support. Potential longs, yeah, AMD is down. Okay, that'll handle itself. It'll take care of itself. So while that's doing its thing, I'm just trying to find discounted trades that would be good, potentially on the futures, but not solid enough. Apple potentially on a long, I don't know yet, but I am looking for longs across the board here, trying to use this dip down or this move down as a potential long. Why? Because for me, until this market breaks back through that 3,700, which may be a wide range for a lot of people, for me, there's a lot of activity that I can work with on the buy side. That could change over time, and that could change if Apple accelerates to the downside. But for the time being, I am looking for potential longs if I can find them. That's the critical thing. I'm not going long for the sake of it being cheaper. You got to be able to find them first.
Yeah, and Apple is breaking down. So it did pop back into 143. I said look for that price to pop into some shorts. Got 142.85. Scalp some to 50. It's now bouncing off 142. Here's my issue with this. A lot of people, Apple is one of those stocks where when it does a big move to the downside, there are a lot of people on the sidelines who are thinking, oh, this is an opportunity to get in at a good price. And even as I say that, here's that second bounce off 142. I have a 3-minute chart up, so a 1 minute will maybe show you these a little better. I actually had a conversation with a trader this afternoon about why I use a 3-minute chart. I just find when you're scalping trades or you're putting trailing stops and trying to hold, it's just a little bit easier to work off a higher time frame. Otherwise, you're a little bit too active. But it just bounced a second time off that 142. It did test down there before. I've already scalped one leg out. If you come back into that 143, I want to give it some room and I want to try to get back in. But I might just take close to that 142, which it's sitting at now, grab this out, and then if it works back to upside of the range, just keep on rinsing and repeating, and then look for a 142 break into the downside. So once we were below that yesterday's resistance, I said I want the shorts on Apple, so short pops. I'll look for the 142 break. I might just get out of Rivian. Actually, you know what? My stop's actually at 50, so I tightened my stop to like 5 cents on Rivian. So it's a tight enough stop. I don't have to worry about it. Intel continues to make legs to the downside. This Apple news is shifting. If you're a scalping trader, this has really shifted the news on you. There's that break of 42. Did I even get the break at 42? No, I did not get the break at. I didn't even get the break at 42. Are you kidding me? Oh, give me a break. I didn't even get it. And now I'm getting cookies though. Oh, Fahad, man. Apple just broke 142, and he's got cookies in my face. If you got chocolate chip, I'll take a chocolate chip if you got it, brother. But give me an absolute break. I'm not chasing it anymore. I'm taking my chocolate chip cookie from Fahad. I just said 142 break on Apple, and I don't even get it. So that just happened.
But
now it's at 141 and accelerating to the downside.
But you got a cookie, though.
I mean, but I got a cookie.
But you got a cookie, though. So for me, remember, like I was saying, no, I'm good, thanks, man. I said I was looking for longs as long as something can stabilize. Yeah, nothing's stabilizing. So for now, we're just going to hold the one AMD and see if we can actually find something else. But for the time being, we'll take that hit if it ends up breaking the levels that I'm looking for on AMD. Apple shifting the market, like Neil said. Apple, you got to really pay attention to the top three in terms of weighting in the indexes, right? You got to look at Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon. Apple is the largest weight, somewhere close to 12%, I believe, in the NASDAQ. So if you put Apple and Microsoft together, that's almost a quarter of the 100 names. So 2 names out of 100 already control 25% of the index. So you know that's a problem. So if Apple gets going, there it goes. Look for longs. Apple's not slowing down. That means I can't step in any longs just yet. The question is Apple going to break 140? Yeah, it's at 140, 125, but 140 would be the bottom end break. And if they take 140, it's going to be a problem. Why? It's not going to look good on the daily. NASDAQ's going to open up to the downside. Let's take a quick look at the NASDAQ chart. I haven't seen this one just yet. I've been paying attention to the ESs. NASDAQ would most likely take a look at 11,000 if Apple takes a look at 140, and we're about 100 points away. So just really pay attention to those areas. I'm looking for longs, but it doesn't look like I'm going to find it. So at that point, just stand aside. Don't waste too much. You know what's funny? That he brought you a cookie after him and I had an entire conversation about healthy eating. Uh-huh. He says, oh, after today, he says, I'm done. Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing. In all seriousness, like I wasn't really turning my head to Fahad. Like I'm not making that's BS for me to call excuse. He's offering me a cookie at that time. I was focused on Apple. I just missed it. I just missed the re-entry at the 142 break. I simply flat out missed it. It is what it is. And then I didn't chase it, but you chased it at $0.50. It then went to 141. Remember I kind of said watch Qualcomm? Same time, Qualcomm making some fresh lows. It's down 1% now and screaming. And yeah, I tighten up my stop on Rivian and I'm out of it. And Aaron's like, why do they cut to me when I have a mouthful? So this started we've been on YouTube for a couple of years now, and everybody knows I have a thing for pastries, and every time someone comes with Timbits, it's like I'm never saying no because it is what it is. I actually eat pretty healthy. It's just you offer me a pastry in the middle of the day, I'm probably going to say yes to it. So I'm always eating on the show. If someone brings something, and these guys, it was funny the first time they did it, and now they just keep on doing it. I always try to eat when the camera's on somebody else, so you guys don't have to watch it. But Lucas and Fahad find a way to make sure that if I'm doing this, and sometimes I try to fake them out, they will throw the camera on me, regardless of whatever quality information Arun is trying to tell you. Apparently, they've decided that you guys need to see me stuffing my face with a Subway cookie, which is delicious, by the way.
Is it really? I've never had their
So
cookies.
if you've never had the Subway cookies, you just got to make sure they're fresh, because if they're fresh, and these ones are pretty fresh. The chocolate chip's good. I find they never have my favorite, which is the oatmeal raisin. But speaking about Qualcomm, this bottom they could break. 109.50. This morning bottom. Go back to Friday. It was the Friday low, 109.50 on Qualcomm. You might be able to get a tiny little bounce here, but that starts to break. It's out. I've got to hold on to Intel because once again, I'm in hold mode. I've scalped it. Want to hold on to it. But BAC was the other long I've had. Thank you, Apple, for what looked like it was a pretty long happening on BAC. I got the reloaded VWAP. It's now looking like it wants to take out its last support. Well, next support at 34.60, and then I'll be stopping out of BAC. But that's what happens. Like, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. You can have all the levels in the world, but if you're like, I'm not long BAC at 34 off the bottom. I'm long on a break of VWAP and a hopeful bounce off VWAP. Like, that's the kind of trade that just goes out the window when you get a little shift in the market like we just saw in Apple. Apple's trying to catch a bid off of that 140. That's the next shoe to drop. If it does so, watch out for that Qualcomm level at 109.5. That could be a big bounce or even a break if Apple can't hold out here. I should have had those 142s. Maybe we'll get a pop to get back into this, but Apple's taking the market.
Yeah, thanks, Apple. Why couldn't you do that before I got into AMD so I didn't have to sit in AMD? Now $1 out. We're close to getting out. If it keeps going down, we're close to getting out. Now, the futures market bouncing off that 37.05, but we've been here before, and we bounced pretty sharply, but this time it feels a little different, right, with Apple coming down severely to the downside. So here we are kind of coming back to that 3,700. If we get through that 3,700 again, you know, the first time around, we really didn't get too many stops going, right? We went to 97 quarter, but some seemed kind of light. Second time around, I'm fairly confident that if we get through that 97 one more time, we're going to open up some stops, probably into the mid to low 90s. So just keep an eye on that. But at the same time, there's still a chance. Even if there's a tiny chance, there's still a chance that we might just do a quick double bottom. This market has a tendency to do these V-shaped recovery moves after an elongated move in one direction. We see this time and time again. And is this market going to give us one of those? I mean, you guys can put it in your chat. I see a lot of you guys saying that it's going to be red. I mean, I would.
NASDAQ just turned red. I mean,
NASDAQ has been red. I guess I'm looking at the S&P, but yeah, NASDAQ's red. S&P's up 0.5% still to the upside. So we'll see if S&P also joins the NASDAQ and goes negative, and it's pretty much going to revolve around that 3,700. So at that point, it's a waiting game. Probably going to take a hit on this AMD. So we're essentially, that's the second trade for the day for me, right? This futures position from this morning, and now the AMD position here that's out of the money. And if we do break through that 3,700, I think that's where I'll start looking into the ESs again one more time, potentially on a short side this time around. If we get through this, I'm going to mark it off as 90. Oh, where is it? Right here. It's not on this chart. If we get through that 90, I'm going to give it a little bit of flexibility. If we get through 90, I'd open up the shorts. But at the same time, like I said, this entire time, until we break through those 3,700s, I'm still looking for longs. I just need them to set up. We haven't set anything up yet, but at the same time, we can potentially find something, maybe. But I'm not holding my breath, so we'll just let the market do its thing, and then we'll come back to it if we do get a trade at some point.
So you're going to see me, I've now put on, this is not an intentional hedge trade, but what essentially happened is Apple bounced off 140.50, went back into the 142 that I missed. It's now got it a second time here at that 75 mark, at the quarter mark. Well, at the same time, Qualcomm bounced off that low, retook 110, so holds that 109 area. So the sympathy play shows some strength, and I want to try to go long off of that level in the sympathy play. Whereas if Apple continues to go down, I've got myself some cover. I kind of feel like I need to see something pretty special out of Apple to flip into the longs at this point. So I've already scalped some out at 1-to-1 risk. Now I want to hold down for a test of that 140, or maybe it is 140.50, something along those lines. So I'll get out there on the bid. Obviously, we have that Qualcomm. 109.50 is a pretty big level that I do want to respect. And keep in mind, like I've said, there are people that wait for opportunities like this on Apple. So at all times, like, I'm going to have relatively tight stops. If at some point, whether it's this trade or it's like the third time I go short, you could have this where it breaks 142, and because I didn't adjust my stop, I do end up in a long trade because it broke that 142. And when I got out, I didn't adjust my stop. But I'll try and scalp that to the long side. I might be adding to Qualcomm in front of 109.50, but I don't want to do that yet. If Apple holds above 142, then I want to be adding to that Qualcomm and see if that doesn't run all the way back. I've seen this story before. If Apple sees 143 or 144, you could have the sympathy play in Qualcomm going right back. I mean, 111 is realistic, but you could be sitting at 112 here if people aren't really buying what that story is selling. This is not changing me on Intel because I don't care how much we bounce. I was thinking short before the Apple news on Intel, so if we pop on Intel, I'm just going to short more Intel. I want that short in front of 26. That doesn't matter about Apple. It's completely irrelevant. And yes, thank you, Jerd. That's interesting. Jerd in the chat saying, watch out for Twitter. That almost took, and I just got the scalp trade on Apple, so we'll make back what we lost in the second half of that short. But the home run will come if this is the bottom, and I have it in Qualcomm. And if we get that 52 break on Twitter, which thank you for reminding me, Jerd. Twitter almost broke 52. It still has some size on the offer. It was a pretty big offer the first time it got there. There's a lot of resistance at that price. It has its own news from earlier today, but this is just a pure resistance break scalp trade on Twitter if we break 52 even.
I see you guys in the chat. Why would I go long when it's coming down? Because sometimes there's value to be found. So just because the market's going one direction doesn't necessarily mean that you go in that direction all the time. I mean, you gotta be smart about it. But at the same time, I'm looking for potential relatively strong names. We see that Amazon is strong today. It's still up 1.6% on the day. That's a name to where, what do we have here? Amazon's one name, Pepsi, and Costco. So those are three names at the top of the, I guess, the weight list in terms of the index weighting that could be relatively strong plays. So I'm going through them. Can I find longs in Amazon? It's bouncing, but Amazon had a pretty tight range on the day. So do I want to step into Amazon? Although it's up, it's kind of tight. So no, I'm going to say no to Amazon. Market's bouncing back and around. Sure, it takes some time to develop this out. And then the next one is going to be Costco and Pepsi. Costco up 1.5, still range bound. It's going to be hard to pick up along there. I'm looking for discounted plays down near the bottom if I can find any. If I can't find any, we'll just pass it up. Keep in mind, I can also step into longs from the futures if I do get the setup there as well. I'm keeping my eye open. Potential trades against 36.90 on the long side on the futures. But for now, it looks like the market has bounced off those 37.05s. Apple's bounced off that 140 half, quick move all the way up to 142. And now here comes Apple's back to the upside. Not as deep, but it's just a bounce to the upside. And I think, like Neil said, 143, 144 is going to be the testing point. If we get back above 143 half, I would say, then we really do have a chance to get back up to 145. But again, that's a long way to go. 140 is sitting there on the daily, acting as big support. Let's just see if they go towards that, towards breaking it, or if they're going to use that as a bounce point and then take it back up to where this news came from, which is going to be 145. So it's a waiting game at this point. Nothing yet, nothing solid yet. So we're just going to wait it out until this market gives us something else.
Yeah, I'm going to wait it out in Qualcomm here, but I think I heard Brendan. Do you have something, Brendan?
Just this little QNRX going again, guys, up 50% now. Just took out the highs. This was up on a trial initiation for skin disease this morning. So heads up on QNRX, some volume coming back in.
Oh, yeah, QNRX. I actually pulled that one up, and that's a good break. I thought it was about 3, I wanted to say. But here's that 142 on Apple. I'm trying to show both charts because you're now starting to hold that 142. Sorry, that 142 starting to get held on Apple, higher low. And you're still at the bottom end of that double bottom on Qualcomm. So I'm trying to get a few more shares here. If it breaks 109.50, like I said, I'm getting out of Dodge to be sure. But another name which you're looking for things that are moving, right? Right now, Apple is holding above 142. I don't know how aggressive I need to be at Qualcomm above the 110 level, but I do want more shares. Another name which is super strong today and marching to the beat of its own drum. I don't know if it's just going to go sideways for the rest of the day, but CCL's up 11% and has now found a bid at $8. And this is super strong. It is breaking out on the higher time frame, so you're through like a 785 resistance. So it is breaking out pretty nicely. I'll kick myself because when I missed that breakout, I said, look at 785. Look at it hold that 785 on a dip. If you retest a breakout price when the market comes back in and looks like it was turning red, and you hold that higher low, that is always a good look. And that's a place to look for in the afternoon. So that's what I saw here on CCL. If it holds 8 even, there might be some scalp trades. But it's also possible that all you get is 8 to 825, and we sit sideways at the top of the range. If that's all you get, then you got to be willing to take it. I'll try to be on that bid. I did just add to Qualcomm. Unfortunately, it was not beneath 110. I'm consolidating above 110, so I just got a few more shares in there. My average price is 15s now, so I'm risking about 65 pennies. I am looking to see, I'd love to be able to, I did leave myself some room to add a couple of times down closer to that 109.50 double bottom. And if we do break higher, I do want some out halfway to 111, some out in the 111, like 25, 30 range. Where I think this could reject would be right around here in shy of VWAP, because ultimately it is still bad news. Whether you believe it or not, it's still bad news for Apple and Qualcomm. But Apple on the march back into the upside. And it's not to say that, like, you could just be long Apple here as well. The way I sort of see it is some of the algos, if they start rolling over and dumping the market, I would think Apple moves a little bit faster than Qualcomm. So if I'm going counter trend by the dip on Qualcomm, then if I see a harsh turn on Apple, I might have a chance to just react to the tape on Apple and get a quick reversal or get out of some of my shares. For now, I'm going to get out in front of 111, throw some offers out in there. If this market continues to try to bounce, then that'll be an opportunity for me to get some more Intel shares short. But look how weak Intel is. Even as we're trying to bounce off the low of the day, we barely went anywhere. Like it's still a dog at this point. You know, like that's relative weakness if I've ever seen it. That's a pretty decent bounce off the lows. Apple's $2 off of its lows. Intel on the same bounce went 10 cents. It's down 3% into an up market. That tells you what you need to know. We're 10 cents away from the Twitter breakout at 52, so that's going to be on my radar as well. Want to look for that pure momentum break.
Yeah, one thing like I said, I've been looking for longs. I'm trying to find relatively strong names. Nvidia. I've been trying to catch Nvidia for the last few minutes here, trying to get a fill. This market is just kind of running up with it. So I've got some bids around that 118.50 mark, but it's trading at 83 right now. I'm going to leave it. I still like it for a relative strength play here on Nvidia, potential long. It's going to be around 118.50, somewhere around there, against 117 and change. If we lose 117, we're probably going to lose Apple through the bottom. We're probably going to lose 3,700 on the Nasdaq, or not the Nasdaq, on the ESs as well. So I'm perfectly okay with the risk attached to this trade. If I'm going for the longs, I'm going to play in certain names. Obviously, AMD is not the greatest of the entries, given the timing of it, but I'll pick up Nvidia now that I've seen what Nvidia can offer. I'm still looking at Costco. Costco's not the best. But again, it's going to be some names that are going to be relatively strong. It's just a matter of picking them up when we do get them. I'm looking quickly at the radar, or my scanner here. What do I have up top? Yeah, it's Lockheed. Lockheed's up 9% on the day, but strong. I mean, that's just, do I play that? It's been sideways for the most part. You really can't, if this market can hold up against, if Lockheed can hold up against this entire thing, and mind you, Lockheed's not that big in the index. You could argue for the long on Lockheed around 432, but at the same time, if it's disconnected from the index, why even possibly participate? Because you're trying to play with the index, right? So for now, it's just Nvidia. I think I'll step into if I can get that fill, and then we'll hold AMD through the bottom. And then futures market, nothing yet on the futures for any entries there.
And the reason I'm happy and not looking gift horses in the mouth is this just happened on Apple. So it tried to get up to 143, broke 142.50. I'm thinking that previous low where we got the initial short on Apple would be a resistance point that I could jump into the short of. So I don't get the short, but this is why I was trading Qualcomm, because the second that curl happened and I was looking at my Qualcomm position, I'm like, oh, Apple's returning back into the downside. I could still get Qualcomm kind of in the money off. Like my original entry was 110.10. I was able to still get some in the 40s here, and so I was able to get some out. And then if it works back lower, I'll get myself a better price on Qualcomm. But that was after you'd already had the pullback over there on Apple. And by the way, if you're looking at some other names in the market here, this is what happened. This is what's going on in Microsoft, which is now red on the day. It's relatively weak. Not really testing those lows, but everything's getting dragged back down. I don't want us to forget about Netflix. They're the ones reporting after market today, and Apple decided to basically steal all the thunder when we had that the production release note that just came out there. But Netflix, it's diddling in the middle. Maybe there's not going to be a trade in Netflix. If it pops back up, I think maybe I'd like to short some pops, just given the sentiment in the market here. That can be worth it. People might want to go risk off. But for now, my eyeballs are on Apple. Shorts in front of 143 there. Qualcomm longs in front of its double bottom at 109.50. Short Intel on basically any pop because it's garbage right now. And then do not forget about Twitter. It is now at 97. 51.97 that is, so getting really close to, and I went the wrong way. This is still on Apple for some reason, so I'll have to manually go over and show you the level that is 52. So you've got just on the New York gateway, which is the primary, it's a New York stock, 250,000 shares on the offer, about 340,000, I don't know, I just glanced at it, 350,000 shares. So you run the math, 350,000 shares times 52. That's just what's displayed at 52. I mean, there could be double that in the dark, which I would suspect there's probably at least 100,000 shares in the dark there. So you could have 500,000 shares sitting on the offer at 52 on Twitter. This is why I'm looking for this level. Usually, you know what? Like usually I see a double top like this and I would be shorted, like short 98.99, and then you're just looking to scalp it to 90s and 80s, and then when it breaks, you reverse. You know what? Like ain't nothing to it but to do it. So I'm sitting there talking about it like, oh, this is usually a trade I would think about here. So let's just go ahead and do it. I just got some at 96. I'll try to get some more shares at like 97 or 98. And the idea here, I understand for most people, you're like, if you think it's breaking, if you're pretty convinced that it's breaking 52 and you like a breakout long at that price, why would you short 96, 97, 98 if you think there's momentum to a 52 break? Well, I can use a stop order to cover a position. I can use it to get into a long anyways. And then if I risk 5 cents or 4 cents plus slippage, maybe 6 or 7 on the short in front, it doesn't have to move that much to the downside for it to be a profitable trade. So key level, I'm going to play it in both directions here. If you're waiting for the breakout, that's fine too. But I grabbed some at 96. I'm trying to get some 98s as well. I haven't been able to get filled on the offer. But I'll start bidding at like 91s and then get into the 80s and start sort of working this one out to that downside. Doesn't have to move much to yield a bit of a win. But I want my bids out there. Because anyone that's in that long, when it doesn't break 52, they start taking profits and getting trailing stops. That's my out. It's profit takers on the out. The news is positive to the upside. I see some people talking about rum, which Rumble. I like calling it rum because it's RUM and it's good. It's a really cool ticker. But I haven't. One that's moving is Ape, and I don't know why Ape is moving the way that it is. So I don't wonder if there isn't some sympathy to some of these other small names. Come on, load up. Rumble, there you go. There's some sympathy to like some of the other names related to Twitter, right? So that's what it feels like it could be. Maybe it's that tie-up, which does lend me to think maybe we are just going to take out that 52. Only a couple cents in the money there, but I have to assume that this is somehow sympathy related until I'm proven that that's not the case. So Rumble making some moves. Good look there to be able to catch it. If you're in the social media space, you could be catching some. There was some Snapchat news as well, but Rumble making some power moves. I'm not in it. I'm not chasing it because my attention is going to be over at Twitter. The good news for me on Qualcomm is Apple. Hit enter twice, Neil. Apple continuing to maybe fall, test that 42 and head lower. But Qualcomm, the sympathy play, kind of holding higher. Now the problem is, look, Apple starts making fresh lows. I don't think Qualcomm's going to be able to hold up too much longer. So I'm going to use the momentum in Apple to the downside to make me realize it's only going to give me a 20 or 30 cent scalp. If this wants to go higher, while Apple goes lower, then I'll just be happy to take it all out. I can always buy a dip down into 109.50. But sometimes you just take the positive trade because the risk of the other direction is not worth it. If Apple wants to retest those lows, which it's consolidating now, so either breaks up and I got out of Qualcomm 50 cents too early, or we break down and I would have turned Qualcomm into a loser, I'd rather just take the win and start thinking about how I can get some more shorts.
More shorts? Oh.
You don't like the short, eh?
No,
I
don't.
don't like the short.
I really don't. Not yet anyways. I mean, I've got 2 longs, and I might change my mind later, but not right now. Nvidia's up 60 cents or so off that bottom bounce. AMD obviously out of the money, but at the same time, the market's trying to bounce around this 15, so I'm not entirely convinced on the short, but at the same time, there's not too many great longs available. So I've got Nvidia, but you're struggling around. Of course, this can turn around. Of course, this can all spin around. Apple goes through 140, and then we all end up negative, and blah, blah, blah. It should have been the short. Short should have been the way to go. I mean, it's a risk you take. If you have a certain approach to the market, you execute that approach. Mine says longs is what I'm looking for, relatively strong ones, and I'm going to execute it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'll eat the loss, and I'll move on with my life, right? So for now, I'm looking for longs. We've got 2. One of them obviously was unfortunately timed before the news came out. We've got one that's timed well with Nvidia. Now I'm just trying to look for some more. And I'm going through the list. I'm like, what can I potentially pick up on long that's actually still good? Maybe the banks. JPM is the potential. It's up 2%. I haven't seen the chart yet. Range bound. Okay, so we can't go JPM. So I'm still trying to find something.
BAC's range bound, so I'm stuck in BAC.
Yeah, that's the thing with a lot of the banks though, right? Yeah. They had all that activity in the morning, and now they just went sideways. Same thing with Goldman as well. So we're going to have to, there aren't that many candidates for a long. Goldman actually might be.
What price is Goldman?
Goldman's at 313.62 right now.
Ooh, it has 310's a good support level if you want to give it that much room. Before we go to Brendan, Twitter will do this. Thank you very much. You don't have to flush very far, but when you're shorting in front of an even dollar level like 52, I just take it and run. I want to shout out to Jared in the chat because Apple happened, and I almost forgot about the 152 level. But then you mentioned it in the chat. That's why I love the community, because I knew this is a level I was keyed in on. But then Apple goes out there and changes everything for a couple of minutes. But we go right back to, well, it's now down at the 80s, so I've already taken some out 91s, some out at 86s, going to get some out in the low 80s and wait for some 70s. This trade at this point should not be able to turn into a losing trade unless I manage to bungle it by not getting stopped out at 52 even. Brenda, what do you got?
I am keeping my eye out for something on this one, guys. Rumble on a big move, as everyone was saying there, 6% now. There's nothing yet, but I'll let you know. And then this as well, Altria heads up on Mo. It's not really doing much, but the FDA and DOJ seeking a permanent injunction against 6 e-cigarette manufacturers, including Juul. So heads up on MO as well.
Yes, sir. And, oh, come on, load. I was just looking at, Altria with a bit of a lower high. It's diddling in the middle. I was kind of like, the last time I looked at this stock, I was like, oh, is it anywhere near this 46, 47 level? But I haven't looked at it in a few days, and it's not, so it's kind of gotten away. Look, Altria gets to 46. You can see why I liked it up here. Rejected 46. Go to the daily chart. It's got a 46 top in there back at like in August, it looks like. So that would have been a great level on any kind of strength to maybe short into it. But kind of getting away from that one. Apple, we keep talking about it because it is leading this market, at least in terms of momentum for the last couple of minutes. I'm glad I'm out of Qualcomm now because Apple is trying to roll over at 42. I'm not in this short because that's the short that didn't work out as well. The first time through when I was eating the cookie and should have had it, that's when you wanted that 42. The second time on the way back, no good. Scalp long. Now I want to short off that 43. 42 halves, 43s. I'll be taking shorts. I didn't mind Goldman Sachs for you there but there's a lot of room for it. Instead, I just decided I looked at the support. So while that Apple thing happened, BAC ends up holding 34.60. Test once, test twice, bounces off it a second time. I just decided to add in front of that long. I'm just going to stop outright at 34.60. But when you get pressure to the downside, if a stop picks up support, then I really don't mind trying that long. It's an extra few shares where I'm going to risk 5 pennies on the shares that I added to it. But as I said, I am still looking for opportunities to get into that short. And speaking of Qualcomm, if 109.50 does go, I do have to respect the fact that this should be just a jailbreak. It's a double bottom. You go to the higher time frame. I keep peeling back. You go to Friday's stop. Friday. It's not just today's bottom. This is Friday's low. After that Thursday unbelievable jailbreak, your CPI price was essentially breaking this same level. So you got your CPI high breakout, then you have the lows on Friday, and then you got today's low. Qualcomm takes it out. I will go long one more time in front of it, but if it breaks, there's only one thing to do, and that's to punch the momentum short.
Yeah, Goldman Sachs is, I think, my next candidate for a long. I'm just weary of the action on the futures right now. So it's a little sideways. Initially, it was great for value, but now the fact that it's struggling a little bit makes me hesitant on picking up any more longs. But if I were to, I think Goldman would be the top candidate here for the next one, around that 314 mark. You'd have to risk it through the bottom, right? Around that 312 area, but. Goldman stabilizing somewhat of a, I guess a double bottom, triple bottom, whatever you want to call this little pattern here. I'm watching Goldman, but as soon as I get some information from the futures market to firm up, Apple, if we can get back above 142 and firm up, then I'd step into Goldman. For the time being, I think I'm pretty content with what I've got right now, the 2 longs and waiting for a futures trade. I think apart from that, it's very tough. And Neil, you took Twitter in front of 52, right?
Yes.
And it fell off. That's
it's one of those,
perfect trade, right, for you?
Yeah, it's not perfect yet because I'll pull it back up. But I just want to make a point here. Someone said 3,700 is broken. If you're we're watching the ES, so the E-mini futures.
It broke earlier.
And, it broke earlier, 3,700. But the last test just now didn't break.
No, that was like the low. What was the low? It was like 3703.
Okay.
Yeah.
It broke earlier, but just now it didn't break 3700. I just want to be clear because I saw someone in the chat saying 3700 broke. It did break earlier in the session. But,
yes.
This afternoon it has held. But Twitter, it is working. I wouldn't call it a perfect trade. Goodness gracious. I wouldn't call it a perfect trade until it at least gets back to this area. Because here it is, consolidation. Like the long initially when rejected 52, pulls back into 70s, makes a high at 80. I know because I had that long. I got 10 cents on it. Then I'm like reloading immediately. So when it broke out in the 75 to 80 range, that's when it took 52. So a perfect trade would be it giving you the 52 going all the way at least back to that first consolidation where it broke out from. Then I would want to hold on to one last piece. Usually it's like 10% or 20% for the pullback into VWAP. The notion of doing that trade 97, 98, 99 in front of evens is it is counter trend. It is very tight stop to get, relatively speaking, a small gain, although there's nothing wrong with 25 to 30 cents on a $50 stock, but it's the risk to reward that you're looking for on that trade. But I'm not thinking this is coming all the way down to 51 and falling down with the market. That is not the way that you're trading this, because it is still momentum up on positive news. Brendo?
Another recent runner here, iLag, guys, just popping up on volume. We've talked about this one many times as well, but heads up. Not a huge move yet, but some volume coming into ILAG.
iLag. I'm trying to. I feel bad. I don't want to say it in the chat, but you got to remind me what these guys do, because I remember trading this one. It was like last week, I think. So, load. PC load letter. What are you talking about? See, like it's loading data. I flipped too many stocks, but I do remember trading this last week. My trades aren't going to show up, but this is the day, right? Like when it was taking out on the upside 11. So you'd have to. Like, you take me a lot of convincing to like a long that isn't breaking out of this consolidation. When you fill a gap to the downside, you want it at least breaking this high. This looks like 360, or even better yet, like this one, 390 or $4. That's a much more convincing break off the lows. Otherwise, you're usually fading it, so 10% is great, but always zoom out to see what it's done in the past, which is capitulate through 5. Lots of room. If it breaks 350, breaks 380, you got a gap fill into $5. But I do remember that from last week, and the first thing my mom thought about was $3. That's not where that stock was. I remember it halted all the way up to like $11, and then you had this on the other side of 10. I know because I shorted it up at those highs. But yeah, I lag, not lagging the market today because it is up 9%, so I want to give it some respect.
Yeah, I'm going through this. Given the way the market's moving, obviously backing off the longs here because the longs are looking like they might slip a little bit here. So I'm looking at Nvidia getting some sell side pressure. That was the one winner. That was like 60 cents, obviously spun around. And now the market back towards 37.05. So we may be on the downside here as we get through that 3,700. We're not close to getting through that 3,700, but at the same time, the action isn't that helpful for a long at the moment. So I am looking to shed some risk a little bit here. AMD will get stopped out once it cracks through the level that I'm going to stop out at. But for the time being, market kind of pausing. And you expect this, right? What time is it? 3:16. We've got about 25 minutes, actually not even 25, about 35 minutes before we get imbalances. We've had a mixed day here, up 0.5% on the S&P, flat for the most part on the NASDAQ. Futures market now coming down. Is Apple leading the charge? Because it looked like Apple was actually stabilizing. Yeah, Apple has stabilized. So it must be something else that's picking up steam here to the downside.
Netflix is...
Is it Netflix? We talked about Netflix earlier. Netflix doesn't have as much weight as Apple does, but it is still in the NASDAQ index. And it's got earnings. And we talked about this earlier where if you really wanted excitement, you come back in towards the end of the day. I said after the imbalances come out, but I guess we are starting to make our moves now on Netflix here as we come through that 240. Now, the bottom that we bounced off earlier was around that 239 and change. If we break 239, you're probably going to start to see this market open up. Not market, you're going to start to see Netflix open up probably to the downside, but it's just one to watch. Again, it's exciting towards the end when earnings are about to come out. And I believe the earnings on Netflix is like right after the open. So it's not even like Apple, which releases at half an hour.
Yeah, we get them like it's
within a few minutes, right?
Yeah, like I don't want to say the exact time because I don't remember precisely, but it is one of those that's in the pocket in the first 15 minutes after the close, because usually we get a chance to see them, and we'll stick around. If it comes out right after market, like I know we're done at 4 o'clock, we'll come right back, and not come right back, we won't leave you. If Netflix drops the earnings, we'll try to get the numbers as fast as we can, and then show you exactly what's happening with it. But it's Tesla. Maybe more so than Netflix moving to the downside. I was looking around, I'm like, it can't just be Netflix, because like you're right, it's not that big of a weight. It's Tesla that's red. It's Tesla that just broke the low of the day. It's Tesla that I should be looking for some opportunities to the short side on. It was the bloody trade of the day. I should be going right back to the well here. But 219 looks like it gave that up. I don't know if this wick is real. It's challenging 220 and then rejecting. If it is, that's usually a God mode short. Like you see a wick like that if it was real, and you're like just short beneath the 219 or the consolidation because it's heading lower. I don't think it's very real. But either way, Tesla dragging the market down. But you've bounced off 3,700 again. So really no follow through. All that's done, that last test to the downside, has got me out of BAC. Which, by the way, BAC breaks by 1 cent. It's not going anywhere. A lot of times I jump back into the trade, but it's not moving. So I don't want to. It's not moving. I don't want to be in it. Like I don't mind sitting in Intel because it's in the money and you're holding it down. But sitting in something which is barcoding and not doing anything for you, well, if the market moves, like what am I going to get out of it? Apple, on the other hand, retesting this 142.50, so showing some signs of strength. Like I would jump in. I'd be much more inclined to short Tesla on this pop if I wasn't seeing Apple start to break out here. And Apple is coming back. I'll kick myself over this. If Qualcomm had actually hit 109.50, it did not. I'm on the bid at 65s. I'll probably cancel those because it got down to 109.80. I wanted to dip by that in front of 109.50. It bounced about 30 cents away. I might go aggressive again with Apple showing strength. 110 was the entry last time. 109.80, 109.90. I may take a shot at that. Started at 10, add to it in the 70s and 80s to get that average price.
There's a good question in the chat asking, do the imbalances determine the direction after the market closes? So one thing with the imbalances, that just gives you an idea of how much pressure there's going to be added to the stock as we get close to the end, because everybody who wants to participate in the stock, they send an order in with their on-close order tag, and then all of it gets added up, and obviously there's going to be more sells than buys or more buys than sells. It'll show you the direction of which side that imbalance is, and then that tends to add pressure towards the end of the day. Now, 350 is the first release. 355 is the important update because that's the floor update. Once you get that, odds are those numbers are going to stick around, and you just work with those numbers towards the end of the day, right? So if you get towards the end and it's a sell imbalance, it's a large sell imbalance relative to the day's volume or relative to the stock of what it can handle, then you're going to see pressure in that stock. Now, Netflix, are people going to really do that on Netflix today? I would be extremely impressed if they are unloading or purchasing into imbalance priced positions right before the number is supposed to come out, before earnings has come out. Because why would you price yourself into the official closing price only for the stock to then trade in the aftermarket immediately with volatility? That's kind of ridiculous. But tomorrow, I think tomorrow morning and tomorrow's close is going to be pretty interesting with Netflix. I would imagine it's going to be a little bit larger than typical for Netflix's book. So definitely keep an eye on the imbalances for tomorrow for Netflix. But you know what? At any moment, we might have the imbalances pop up out of nowhere. It happens on any given day. Today, Apple's had a big move towards the end. Is it possible that Apple gets an imbalance to the sell side because of the news? We'll find out at 350.
Yeah, it could happen. Look, it's a great answer. I'm glad you kind of brought that up. Like I'm not necessarily expecting any fireworks. Maybe something on an Apple today because it has news. I'm back into the whole long Qualcomm short Apple thing. It just tried to test that lower high that got put in 142.65, got to about 50, started to pull a reverse, so I shorted it when it got back below 142.25. I'll give myself to this high here. Even if it breaks it, I might take another shot at 43. But these are like scalp trades. So as long as we're below 143, I am really trying to hunt for some shorts there on Apple off these levels. And then as long as I can defend 109.50, I don't have a problem with this Qualcomm trying to take it the other direction. Tesla basically stopped moving down there. So on that bounce, I would have looked for 219. It's holding 218 for now. If it gets back up, starts a bit of a curl at 219, I might get into it. I'm not yet at the point of putting a trail on Intel, but we're now at 320, so the day is moving on here, and I want to make sure I lock in the profit, even if it's on those bottoms. It might not break the low here, but I want to give the market a chance to if the market turns red again, then I think Intel could break the lows. Twitter, not perfect trade because it got down to 75s and is now coming back up to the highs. Every single time it tests those levels, like an even level like that, a 52, all I did here is the fill I didn't get at 98, I just cut it in half because each time it tests a level, I think A, it probably bounces a little bit less to the downside. B, I think it's more likely to break. So I want to take less shares against me over there in Twitter. If it does go, I do still favor a long break if it happens, but there's no guarantee that Twitter's taking that 52 top. But here comes the test. Ooh, Apple just stopped out. So I need to add to Qualcomm. And then Apple took out, now load up. Oh, God. So here comes Apple basically taking out that lower high. That stops me out. The first thing I did when it happened, because I had my stop orders set, was punch more shares into Qualcomm. This is the way that I'm sort of playing these two. I don't know. It's maybe one of these things that I do that maybe no one else does. But I like to have this notion of if I'm playing the same kind of sympathy move or a certain plays, I got an accidental long in Apple. I'll just get out of it essentially flat. But I like to play these sympathy moves, have one thing I like long and one thing I like short. That way I'm not fumbling around with what direction I prefer. So I did add to my position. When Apple started breaking out, I was still able to get Qualcomm within its pocket instead of breaking out of its pocket. And so if Apple continues, then I can get the break up to 111. If Apple doesn't continue, well, I haven't chased it past the range. So I do like that. Twitter's now at 98. It is basically the same story as before. Same size on the offer, nothing changed. I did add back into it. I got some shares at 98 there. If it breaks 52, I'm out. I'm going long. We'll see what happens in Twitter. There's a limit to how far it can go. Obviously, the deal price is 54.20. It's not closing imminently. It was just one piece of news that they're halting employee stock accounts, which could signal that there could be a deal coming. But even then, there's hurdles that has to come through. There's a time value of money. Financing still has to be completed. So there's a lot of things to happen yet for it to get to 54.20. But that doesn't mean there can't be a good pure breakout play at 52.
Yeah, Twitter is one of those names, and we talked about it like when this whole thing was announced a while ago, where you can trade it intraday. It was, it was at a discount, just like it is now. But at the same time, at any moment, there could be news that's dropped that could change the price dramatically, right? It's a headline risk that you got to be willing to accept. And from back when this news was announced, I kept saying I can't digest the headline risk to Twitter specifically, so I just kind of stay away from Twitter. Tesla seems to be doing its thing, right? You can trade Tesla, but like Twitter specifically, I just stay away from it from the headline risk perspective, right? And for me, Nvidia as well, I wanted to go for the long, I really did, but I'm running out of time. We're intraday traders. We got to be flat by 4 o'clock. If we were going to bounce, the bounces were going to be happening between certain specific pockets of volume, right? 3 o'clock typically, and then as we go closer to 3:30. There could still be a chance, but I would have preferred the move to happen already. If we were sitting somewhat of a bounce higher, if we weren't sitting at 15, which is where we've been sitting on the futures pretty much since this drop, if we were sitting maybe at 20, I would have let this one go. But the fact that we're still at 15, I'm kind of just running out of time. I don't want to put up the risk anymore. So we just covered the spread, cover the cost of this trade. We're out of Nvidia, and obviously I'm sitting on AMD at this point just because it's out of the money. Sometimes you're stuck in a position like this where you're out of the money, you're running out of time. At the same time, it makes no sense to get out because your stop is right there. So if you get out right here, there's a reason why you chose your stop in a specific location, right? So why would you get out in front of your stop if there's still an offside chance that it actually works out for you? So for me, I'm just going to let this one go and take it into the imbalance and see how far we can actually go with it. If it breaks through the bottom, if it breaks through 57, I'm out. If there's a negative imbalance, obviously, I'm not going to have a chance that this thing is going to come back even a little bit, so I'm out. So we're just going to let this one work itself out. Futures market not giving us anything for the time being. So when it doesn't give you anything, you just step away, and that's all I can really do. Apple, just when you think it can actually take a shot, remember, we said that around 143.5 is where it's got to get to actually have a shot to the upside, and it is bouncing, and that's all you can say. It is not a quick bounce. It is just kind of trickling up towards that 143 area, but it doesn't have any traction. At this point, unless there's something dramatic that happens, you're not going to have enough juice until you get the catalyst, which will be the imbalance. And if you get the imbalance, then you're just rolling the dice at that point, right? It could be positive, it could be negative, which one, we don't know. So for me, I'm not a dice rolling kind of guy, so I'm just going to step away, maybe come back to this, because tomorrow, whether I'm in studio for Sean or not, or I'm at home giving you guys levels, I'm going to be looking at the same area. This 3,700 through 3,690 is still going to be in play. Regardless of whether we break it or not today, it's going to be an area to watch. So even if we don't have time today, we can come back tomorrow and deal with this if we're still nearby. So let's kind of do that here. I know Neil's got a few positions on. I've got one left.
Actually, I was I was just confirming something like Liz was asking me a question in there. Our social media manager was asking me a question. I was sort of chatting there. But I'm glued to Twitter at this moment, unfortunately. Not unfortunately. As Tesla gets back to this 219, I mean, Apple's still trying to press to 143. Tesla gets right back to the 219. I saw someone in the chat, or some people in the chat talking about Elon's got to dump shares. Elon might have to sell more shares. There's no question about that. It's no guarantee as to how many. Some of the funding is secured. There will be debt financing as well. But he might. There's a very decent chance that he's sold the majority of shares that he will have had to sell to get the deal completed. That doesn't mean he necessarily won't sell more. But it's not an absolute guarantee that it's going to get absolutely dumped on that. Now that you're getting, I mean, again, sideways action, it's 3:30. This is what's happening. We just showed the ES, but come on, break this channel. The one long I got's Qualcomm. It breaks this channel, and I think we can head back into 111. But we are also running out of time for this to start working. So once it breaks even a little bit, which maybe that's enough. I'm splitting hairs. I was sitting at 65. When it's only going to 58, 59. Like, give me a break, whatever. So I'm just gonna take that out. If we do get a push above 111 and test VWAP, I'll try to hang on to this, have a trailing stop in there. Intel's gonna be a much easier trade because it's just still sitting in the money. I'll let this ride into imbalances. I don't think I'll get the reload that I want over on Intel. I'll ride it into the imbalances, and then Twitter, I'm not sure it wants to fall all that far. So if you're still waiting around for this, there's a point at which I don't take breakout trades. Close enough to 350, and I'll probably just cancel my stop to reverse into the long and sit in the short if it's still doing this. I just feel there's a limited amount of time for the break to continue to run when I have to be flat at 4 o'clock. And for those of you who've only been trading the markets for a short amount of time, in the last 2 years, when stocks have momentum like this and don't break out till very late in the session, sometimes the best move happens after market, further to the upside, which there's not much I can do about that because we have to be flat. So I'm not going to be reversing into a long unless it happens in the next 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, and like when we're kind of restricted by time, if you guys are carrying positions in your own book and taking it overnight, that's different, right? As a day trading firm, we've got to be flat by 4 o'clock, futures 4:15. So if you know you've got X amount of time left, you're going to be aware of that as you get closer to the end, right? Obviously, it looks like Nvidia is now taking off. But that's fine. I thought we were running out of time. So for me, if I'm not going to hold until 3:30 and hope that this goes up, I'm just going to walk away from it because it hasn't done what I wanted to do within the time that I've given it. So as the market now comes back up, 37.20, all I can really do is set up the next set of trades. Do I want to trade in the futures as the market takes out through 37.20? Not really, a little late. What I will do, though, as this market accelerates now to the upside, late session buying.
Here we go.
If we do get near the top end, I'm very curious what the imbalances are going to look like as we get to 350 if we get near 37.40. That's going to be an interesting level. Sell side imbalances around 37.40 could be a really good move. There goes, of course, there goes Nvidia to the upside. Apple bouncing now to 143.5. It's all late session buying, covering, if anything, from Apple. And here we are. We're getting the move that we wanted. We just didn't get in the time that we wanted to. So here we are just watching at this point as this market takes off to the upside.
Well, at least I got something. I knew, look, if Qualcomm didn't break support, I knew I was going to have that. If you're just tuning in now, obviously there was Apple, the Apple news lowering production or cutting production on the iPhone. I know Qualcomm is a sympathy play, so when it started flushing to the downside, zoom out. This is just a quick review. Zoom out if you find a significant level. And if you can catch it the first time through on a bounce at a level like this, 109.5, more power to you. It was today's low. It was Friday's low. It was the breakout price on CPI day. It was also resistance at 9:30 or 8:30 on the CPI day. You line all those things up, and the second it bounced off that level, I just want to be long in front of it. End of story. Try to keep it as simple as you can, stupid. Someone told me that. Well, I mean, it's a famous saying, but I've always believed in it as a trader. If you can find necessarily, also the good thing about trading this is I can follow Apple and see what it's doing. Like as Apple gets back above 143, what I can sort of see happen is if Apple can't hold above 143, oh, that break sucked on Twitter. Twitter broke 52, got to 52.10, and then immediately sort of snapped right back. So the seller is right back there on Twitter, and it rejects it. I hate when it does that, man. So I'll get to Twitter in a second, but I want to finish my thought here on Apple. If we reclaim 143, then I just got to get the you-know-what out of Dodge of my Qualcomm trade, which is running in the money, because that 143 is going to be big, and Twitter was... It's a trap.
Was there an animation?
That break was no good. What a trap that was. Look at the rug pull that they did on that. So I'm sitting in the short. The short was good to 75. You get the breakout, and then I'm instantly losing 15 pennies. So last I checked, that is the equivalent of just giving back everything the short, and then the long is no good. I did have some longs earlier, but that is a rug pull. That is a wick top. Whoever is selling at 52 on Twitter, clearly this is somebody that does not care about holding to that 54.20 level. There is a boatload of selling at this price. It is legit. It did the exact same thing, a little bit higher, just above that 52 mark when that positive news came that they were trying to reach a deal. That happened a couple of weeks ago. It's the same termination level. You can't get above 52 even. That's kind of crazy, guys. So we show you the winners, we show you the losers. That's an ugly one. I always get, the second it does that rug pull, it's a short setup. So I'm not, you could hold on to it, hope it bounces and get 10 cents better. I'm just punching the hell out of Dodge when that happens. Take the hit and move on to the next, Brendo.
There was another rather large volume spike there on Twitter. I'm not seeing anything, though. It did get above 52 and came right back down. Just a heads up on Twitter. There's also this. ACI, Albertsons, a little bit of volume coming back in on the high side on this note right now. Looks like there are reports circulating that the Senate Antitrust Panel is expected to announce a hearing on the merger with Kroger any day now. So heads up on ACI as well.
Oh, yeah, ACI is another. That deal could have some regulatory issues when it comes to ACI. But I was just sort of telling everyone, that's a dirty, dirty move. But it's a fair point because the more obvious a breakout is, the more you have to be worried for that. And you have to be pretty quick because when it happened, obviously I was talking about Apple and I'm talking to a camera, which if I wasn't doing that, there's a decent chance I could have gotten 90, maybe 95s out. I think maybe I could have got 90 to 95s, 10 cents better if I wasn't staring at the camera when it happened. But that's about all you could have got. Because as far as I'm concerned, it was up and then down. I heard Pratt, I heard some of the guys in the back say it, and it was just that fast. So watch out for those wick tops. What you can do, so here's a bit of a tidbit for you. If you only like the short at a resistance level, I only like shorts in Twitter. I'm not going long, I'm not taking the break, I only want the short. What you want to do in that situation is anticipate that it could make that move and then have like a 51.95 or 51.99, that order set to go. Then if it does the breakout, doesn't take out more than the first 10 cents, the second you see it reject above, throw that stop order back in or just punch down, and the second you get the fill, your stop is at the high of the day, and you're sitting in the short when everyone just got trapped in the long. But you have to be looking for the short for that kind of a situation. Kind of a good play when you're looking at small caps, actually. And now that I think about it, Qualcomm, starting to wrap things. We actually still have 25 minutes left, so I was about to say start to wrap things up. But Qualcomm putting in a bit of a curl. So we're still above 111. We're still above 143 on Apple, so I'll kind of hold on to this long and give it some more room. If we retake 110.50, I'll probably get out of it. But I want to give it some room while Apple continues to run to the upside. Let a winner ride. If it wants to bounce from here, we were sitting at 112 when the Apple news came out. So the notion that you could get back to VWAP isn't entirely impossible. And I got 10 minutes to imbalances as well.
Yeah, going back to that Twitter move, you have to understand when you're trading levels or charts or even actually working with the level 2, you got to understand that everyone sees that information, right? Like Neil was advertising that there was probably close to 500,000 shares. Everyone sees that. If you've got level 2 depth, most people have level 2 depth if you're trading and you're working sizes, then you know that volume is there. And behind the 500K or so that's on the lit book, you're probably got a decent amount on the dark side as well. All of that has to get chewed through at 52. If everyone knows it's there and everyone is doing very similar plays, which is play in front of the big size, because if it gets close, we'll just get out on it. If everyone's doing the same thing, the smarter thing to do would be to let it come up to it, slip it, and then bring it back. And that's what you're seeing a lot of these times is that's just the easier play, is to get everybody offside, get all shorts out of the way, get some people long, and then come back in on the offer. So trading, although everyone understands that it's a psychology thing, you have to look at the screen and be like, oh, psychologically, what would happen if this price slipped right here? If 52 slipped, what would happen? Are people trying to play short in front of it? If it breaks through, would everyone get out? What's the sustainability of something like that? Then that's where Neil said, if it comes back like that, you go for the short. because it catches a lot of people offside. So anytime you're looking at a chart, you got to think from the psychological perspective how the people that are participating around a certain trade would react if that market went through that area or level or whatever. So it's not just about, oh, it looks like a candle that's going to go up and let's go through it. No, you got to think about the psychology behind, because that's what runs the market, right? It's the psychology, the fear or the greed of whatever people that are trading it. That's what essentially makes a market. So just be aware that when you're working certain prices, you got to understand what would happen, or you got to be aware for the possibility of what would happen if those levels broke or if those levels got taken out. So just be aware as the market comes back in now. Here comes the market off the 30s. I really had wished this market went to 37.40. If we're going to rally, just rally it up another 10 points so I can be in striking distance of a potential trade. But no, comes right back off those 30s into 25. Now we're back in the middle of nothing, really. Everything is kind of stalled out here. I think Apple's back at 143 after moving up a little bit. Everything's just kind of backed off now after that run up, right? So that's kind of kills the vibe for the end of the day. But hey, imbalance is coming out soon in less than almost 10 minutes. That should make things exciting for the few names that have exciting imbalances. And then Netflix, of course, we'll just pay attention to that, see if we can't get some news on that, or not even news, but see if we can't get some activity on that before we get those releases at the end of the day.
And so I said that if there was a pop, I was looking for some intel. Well, we got a pop, so I got some short intel. It curled here at 25.83. So I grabbed this first consolidation. I took the short, but I wanted to thank. We got a super chat in there. Oh, is it already gone? We got a super chat. I want to thank. Oh, there it is. I just saw it from Shock Industry. $2 for Arun's beard game.
Okay.
Which it is. It's a nice beard game.
I mean, you know what it is? I'm just playing around. I get bored all the time with the shape and whatever, and the length and whatnot. So I just play around. Now I'm just going along for a little bit, and next thing you know, it will just disappear. So we'll see. For now, I appreciate you, Shock Industry, but yeah, I've got the beard game going for now. We'll just see.
I like it, man.
What's that? Oh, you're definitely not going to see me clean shaven. But
why not?
It's because
what's wrong with clean shaven? You got a problem with clean shaven?
Some people can carry it, some people can't. I can't carry it. And my wife would leave me if I went clean shaven.
So I'm actually the other way around. Like my beard game is so, like, it sucks. I can tell it like it is. My brother can grow a kick-ass beard. It's hilarious. But I can't. If I tried to, my wife would be like, no, it's not you, man. Keep it clean. So I do. But there was a great question in the chat. Someone just asked, and I've been talking Qualcomm Apple this entire time. So just to get it out there, why Qualcomm is related to Apple. They provide semis and software to essentially cell phones. So any weakness in Apple or any weakness in the industry in general, it's a sympathy play. And it's not to say that it's the only place you can go to for a sympathy play. It just so happens to be the first thing that came to my mind. Like, as a trader, like, over the years, you sort of pick up this is related to this industry, so this stock moves. I kind of know where I can go for a secondary play. So when I heard Apple to the downside, I'm like, okay, what might have fallen that might still have a level I can work off of because it's following Apple and might not be breaking some lows? And the first thing that popped into my mind was Qualcomm. So I went over there. You pick these things up over time. But if you're asking that question, that's legitimate. I don't think I said that. If we get 10,000 likes, does Neil grow a beard? I mean, you don't want me to grow a beard. I mean, probably.
Can we just see it though?
Look, man, it sucks. It doesn't connect in here.
You don't have the continuity.
I'll get like big ass sideburns, and then I'll have like this going on, and
but
then there's no connection.
It'll still be interesting to do the goatee then.
My daughter will. Oh man, see. Okay, fine. But the problem, you know what? I shouldn't say
the goatee, right?
But the problem, I'm thinking about it real time. It's like, you guys understand. Like, I'm game for a lot of things. Like, Sean and I bet. When England lost to Italy, I'll wear like Italy face paint. I don't care because I can wipe it off. I'm not taking myself that seriously. I'll make an ass of myself rapping for you or rickroll you guys. But my wife doesn't like it. So like I have to, happy wife, happy life, man. And my daughter is kind of like she loves it when I have the bald look and everything. So I try to keep it low. My family comes first. If I get the approval on that one and you guys get 10K likes, I'll give it a shot.
I got the perfect reason. You can tell your daughter that it's your Halloween costume. Just saying. She'll be down with that. You got 2 weeks. I think that's enough time.
We have a tradition around here where just about everybody dresses up for Halloween. I'm going to leave it at that. Let's just say there's already a plan for Halloween. Like Sean and I already have a plan, so I don't want to. Like, I can't kibosh that plan, but we already have a plan for Halloween. Every single year we do something. Maybe next year we'll take suggestions for costumes, but we have a lot of fun with it. We do some themes for the show as well. So if you have any suggestions, they'll have to wait till next year because I already got an idea for that. We have 5 or 6 minutes until the imbalances come out. I've seen all these like different, like me as Michael Jordan. I mean, yeah, I just shaved my head. That's a pretty easy costume. I like to try to take it a notch higher than that. But I got one trade left that isn't going to be Intel, and it's just going to be this QCOM. You're going to see me in this AVLR. It is a buyout that's closing today. It's got a 1 cent range. I'm looking to take said 1 cent on it, but I might be in that till the close. Qualcomm's right at my target, 111.25. I want to get this one out. I'm going to be flat on this regardless going into. This always happens. Like, it gets to my, here we go. I just got to fill. So we'll ring the register on Qualcomm. It was probably, you could have had the long on Apple off the bottom as well. I just like the fact that I knew exactly where my support was lying on Qualcomm, so it was an easier trade to manage. But that worked a couple of times. Able to get the dip and then add to it the better it looks. So each time Apple looked better, I'm adding to the dip. And then each time Apple looked good, I'm adding and getting in a second time off of those lows. But I'm out of it, and balances are coming through. We'll see how it looks when they come out. I'm anticipating maybe you see something with Apple. But the early look on the imbalance is 24 million to buy, which is, we get that from Financial Juice. That is essentially non-existent. That's pretty much a nothing burger. So going into said imbalances, I got my short on Intel. I mean, it has a chance to even stop me out before we get the imbalances, but I'm pretty much right here. My stop is actually at 87 on Intel. Actually, no, it's at 86. So we break 86, and I'm out of this Intel short, but I'm giving it one last shot after it was such a good short all day long.
I mean, you can see me, I'm waiting for the imbalances on AMD. If I can get a positive imbalance on it, I'll walk away using that pop. Because usually when the imbalances come out, the stock tends to go in the direction of the imbalance, at least right at the beginning. It doesn't have to stay there the entire way. It could be for like 10 seconds even. So I'm trying to use that to get out because I do want to be out of AMD going into the end of the day. It's not working out, so I'd rather be flat than not. But the one to watch is going to be Netflix, right? I'm looking at Netflix saying, okay, how can we potentially set up trade? We're not going to take the trade now, but I can at least set up the next set of trades, right? Netflix going sideways, pull out to the daily. This is what I want to do with Netflix. It's in a tight range. We're talking late, no, not even late. It's like we entered this range, yeah, in late July, and we've been sideways. So you know Netflix is going to make a move out of this range. Well, I mean, you don't know, but I mean, like the odds are pretty good that Netflix makes a move out of this range above that 250, what is that, 252 high that was put in right here on August the 15th, and then the bottom here around 210. So between 252 and 210, it's going to be wide range moves, but at the same time, if at any chance, if the best chance to potentially take out a range like this is going to be using earnings, right? Especially with the news that they have. So I would definitely mark off these levels, see if you want to play with them. Keep in mind, when these earnings come out, Netflix, although it may look like this, the volume and liquidity is extremely high. If you use, say, off-book exchanges like Arca in the aftermarket, or even Edge works in the aftermarket, right? No,
yeah, EdgeX, Arca, EdgeX, NASDAQ.
And, yeah, NASDAQ, Arca, EdgeX, all available post-market. So there's going to be volume to trade as long as you get the direction right, because keep in mind volatility, right? So if you're wrong, you're going to be slipped quite a bit. So if you're willing to play aftermarket, you could probably participate in the breakout of these ranges whenever it does come out. Just take that with a grain of salt because the volatility is extremely high, the risk is extremely high, but in terms of pricing, you may have something like this, which is Goldman Sachs. You saw this, right? Goldman Sachs making a move like that, where it went from 309 and opened at 320. Yeah, you may have something like that. So you may be able to participate in that breakout if you're willing to play pre-market or aftermarket, but it comes with its risk. In a few minutes, we've got the imbalances coming out, so we'll get an idea of what the imbalances are going to look like. It's going to be somewhat small, probably 20 million, 30 million.
Yeah, tiny.
I mean, that's the estimate. It's going to be a little bit bigger or smaller. I mean, smaller than, under 28 million, absolute value. Do you think it's going to be larger or smaller than 28? Regardless of direction.
No, larger. I think it'll be small but larger than 20.
Remember that one time it came out 0?
I've only ever seen that once. I've only seen a zero
Yeah,
bounce
I've only
once.
seen it once.
But I got to shout out Fred Q here because great minds think alike. I swear this is true. I mean, you have to take my word for it. But I was already queuing up Disney because we got a question in the chat. Like, what about Disney as a sympathy play? Like, I'm looking at Qualcomm for sympathy for Apple, and you're absolutely right. Any streaming play is going to be sympathy for Netflix. Now, here's my only thing. When you're trading this, if you try to trade this after market, it's Netflix that will have the news and Netflix that will have better liquidity. I'm not advocating trading in the post-market on earnings, but Disney might move, but it might not add the liquidity. Typically speaking, and you might reserve this for things like that are bigger weights to the market, like your Alphabets and your Apples and your Googles. But what you can do on those is trade something like the Qs in the aftermarket, because that'll have liquidity, and then the move on like an Amazon's going to move like the Qs or the ES, and you can maybe trade the futures, well, the ETF there. But Disney, I agree with the sentiment, and for sure I'll be looking at it tomorrow. But in the actual aftermarket, I don't expect there to be a lot of liquidity, so you might want to steer clear from it. Less than 1 minute till the imbalances, guys. We know it's going to be crazy. Yes, I agree with you. Dave hates 808s. Disney Plus is dope. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a gigantic comic book fan and I love Marvel and I love Star Wars, as you guys all know. And I know we're getting a lot of obvious suggestions in the chat, but I'm a nerd. I did Star Trek last year. People were suggesting I should just go as Geordi LaForge. I already did Star Trek, and I pulled that one off last year, so I want to do something new. Like I said, we already have a bit of a plan, but all suggestions welcome, man. And if you feel like dressing up when you watch us trade on Halloween, I got no issues with us. Like, tweet us out or whatever you want to do. Imbalance is about to drop. I have Apple opened up. I have a trail on Intel, but I want to see if Apple has an imbalance. Neo had a huge one this morning, but we're about to get them dropped in just a few seconds here. So there we go, and whatever SHLX, 9 million, that's probably some kind of an index action. Cisco, 1.3 million to buy. Nothing else big. I mean, you're seeing some smaller names out there, AT&T, small sell. There's Apple, 670,000 to sell. Or buy, sorry. 670,000 to buy on Apple. That is a nothing burger. And Corey Waters, that is a great suggestion. I will file that one away for next year. I almost don't want to say it out loud. I like it so much. But I pity the fool if you miss a chance for me to show up as somebody else next year. I'm an 8.
Please do. Please do.
Can you? Oh my gosh.
That would be hilarious.
I might as well say it. The suggestion was I should dress up as Mr. T. And I was a huge, I love the 8. I'm older, obviously. So some of those 80s shows my dad watched, I was all over them, man. The old Mission Impossible. I loved, you want to talk about the David Hasselhoff kit? I was all about that bad boy as well. Knight Rider was a great show. So I really don't mind that whole look of the A-Team and coming out as Mr. T himself, the legend. If you don't know who that is, maybe look it up. I'm not the youngest guy in the world, obviously. But nothing burger on Apple in particular. Just a couple of imbalances that I suspect might be index actions or deals closing.
SHLX, I mean, is that Brad? It's a buyout delete. He says. Brad says he would know.
Yeah.
He would know more about that. ET.
Oh no, of course it is. Look at the. Hold on a second. I'll show you guys. Just come if you come to my screen for a quick second. That SHLX, which is 9 million shares to buy. Look at the bid. Yeah, good luck. 9 million shares to sell. Sorry, on the sell and balance, and it is all already there on the bid, just stacked up. So that's not going anywhere. That's a deal closing. I'm assuming a 1585 cash deal that's about to close. So that's not going to go anywhere. Somehow I didn't get trailed out of Intel, which is amazing. Amazing in that I thought it did spike up there. Is that really? What did that get to? That's got to be a dark pool wick because my stop was at that 88 level. But we are running out of time here, so I might just have to start getting out on the bid. And this will be overall. The last of these shares will probably end up close to flat, even if it pops down here. But we're running out of time. Like I said, we have to be flat at the end of the day. So I'll give it maybe one more chance to bounce to the downside. But if we retake these highs, I just got to punch out of Intel. And for Phillips, you're asking in the chat, what was Apple? It came out as 670,000 shares to buy. I don't even see it anymore. So my guess is that it started pairing off pretty heavily because I don't see Apple. I'll go back. You know what? One of my other ones only has the New York that I look
here
at.
Is 445 to buy.
Oh, so it did pair off more. So now down to 445.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Paired off 2.4, still got 400 on the bid. So I mean, Apple 400K is not that big of a deal. You got to get Apple up at 5, 6, 7 million to actually make a big difference. Because a lot of times Apple just sheds volume through. Remember, at 355, we've got another update. That's going to change all of these numbers. So SHLX 8.5, 8.2 with 5 already paired, that number is going to change big time when you get the update from the floor interest, right? So that you really got to take everything between 350 and 355 as a potential idea, mark it off, but you really don't get confirmation of anything until after 355 when you get the next update. So keep in mind, as you can see, I'm trying to get my way out of AMD. AMD popped through 58. I was trying to use that imbalance to get out. It didn't get high enough. If we don't get any help from 355, I'm going to hit the door and walk out of here with a small loss on AMD. But that's all we got. I mean, SHLX, like Pratt said, is most likely going to, do its thing with the cash deal closing. ET has always been there, always pairs off. PAA was a Pan American, I think. PAA is Pan American something.
Well, they're saying you should be the Rock, by the way.
I should be the Rock.
I like these suggestions. By the way, so
Plains
look,
All-American.
there was just TNA was just like you should be Leonard Washington. If you don't know who that is, then maybe you should watch some Chappelle Show. But I'll one up you. If I was to do something from someone from Chappelle Show, I'm thinking Ashy Larry, man, because that's like the most, like, one of the best undercover. Not undercover, but if you watched all of Chappelle Show, it's a while back. But that is one of my favorite all-time characters at the dice game, Ashy Larry there. And I get a lot of Don Cheadle, but I can't think of who. Like, he's played so many. Like, Don Cheadle's done so many fantastic films.
Here with the War Machine suit.
Like,
on.
I have a War Machine suit. Like,
Yeah.
How the hell am I supposed to do a War Machine suit?
I'm sure you can figure it out. You're War Machine.
No,
you
that's
can do
way
it. You
too
can
hard
do
to
it.
pull off. We have to be able to sit here and trade in the thing. Although, shout out to Sean, who hopefully he's back tomorrow. I think he will be back tomorrow. We'll see. But Sean showed up, and he had this full, like, hot dog suit. And he has a hot dog cannon for the winning trades. If I had it, I would hit it. But he did a full hot dog suit. And I remember when we sat down in the morning, I was like, Sean, there is no chance you're going to wear that thing. You're not doing it, man. It was too much. And he was a good sport about it, to be sure. I don't remember how long he was able to hold on to it, but we try to have fun here. With 5 minutes to go, I'm now flat, not in anything, not going to get into anything. Going to look at Netflix going into this close. With 5 minutes to go, the market is reversing back to that downside. The good news is that it ended up holding that 3,700. The bad news is, we gave back half of that. We were up like 2.5% at some point, almost 3%. Now we're underneath 1% on both ES and the NASDAQ. But not just Netflix. We have some other earnings on tap before tomorrow's open, Brendo.
Yeah, busy week for earnings. We're getting into the thick of things. And now, guys, here's what's to come. A whole bunch, especially in the morning.
So, look, everyone cares about Netflix. I just want to throw out there that the airlines and the cruise lines, you saw CCL today, they have been movers. I'm not ignoring United Airlines tomorrow for sure. I think Procter is going to be a good idea to give you some sentiment on the market. But this is all about Netflix, maybe a little bit of United Airlines. ASML matters in the chip space, but it's not something that we usually trade very heavily. And I don't like trading things whose primary market is in Europe, because you're trading the ADR, and if you're doing that while the European market is open, then you're just getting gamed by the algos. If you trade ASML, you trade it directly in Amsterdam, is my opinion. And I love the suggestions that we're getting out there. Don Cheadle played Captain Planet. I didn't even know that was true. If he played Captain Planet, then that guy has literally done everything. That can't be right. I got to look that one up. I don't believe, like, really? He was Captain Planet? Don Cheadle?
I don't even know what that is.
You don't know Captain Planet?
No.
Prad knows Captain. Yeah, that was like it was like a cartoon in the 80s, man. When everyone started going on the environmental tip, it was all about Captain Planet back in the day. I thought that was pretty jokes. There's some other ones coming out there. I love them. Someone gave a suggestion from Coming to America. If I come as anybody from Coming to America, it ain't going to be Randy Watson, because I tried to convince my wife to allow the Soul Glow theme song to be my entrance music for the wedding. And she's like, I'm not walking into that saxophone because it's ridiculous. That is one of my all-time favorite scenes, when Eric LaSalle is driving up and the crazy saxophone's blurring, and he's got the Jerry curl doing all this. And Coming to America, fantastic movie. The sequel sucked. It is what it is. Eddie Murphy's a genius. Arsenio Hall. If you've never watched it, you've got to go watch it. And shout out to our good friends once again at True Trading Group. They just hit us with the 50 free memberships. We don't ask for anything around here. And then one of our one of our good friends and sponsors. Check out their feed at the end of we're done at 4 o'clock. You can jump on theirs if you want to check out some more market information. We're going to have them on next week to talk a little bit about the markets, but another 50 free memberships. Thank you so much. We don't ask for anything around here. We just say spread the love, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Apparently if we get to 10,000, I have to beg my wife to allow me to grow a beard. I don't think we're getting to 10,000, so I'm pretty safe in that regard. She actually does hate it, by the way. It's not like I'm not making this up to dodge out of something. She really does not like the facial hair. My daughter's like, Daddy, you've got scruffies. You've got to go shave. She literally says that. Ooh. If I don't shave every single day, Daddy, you've got scruffies. And if you've got a little girl, then you know exactly where that is going. And that is she wins, and I'm doing whatever the hell she says, and hopefully she's not watching. She's not watching.
All right. Well, I mean,
you'll find.
Yeah,
trust me.
I get it.
Your time will come.
I mean, I get it. At the same time, I mean, like, I'm gonna place the blame on you guys. You guys set the bar at 10,000. We didn't need to go that high. I don't know why you set the bar at 10,000. We could have gone like 2,000. We could have finessed it a little bit. Come on, guys, negotiate a little bit.
We can't even get 2,000.
Why start to get 10,000? Come on, man. This is all about trading. You guys got to be better than that. Value plays here. But as we get towards the end of the day, Netflix coming with 45 seconds left. We're getting near the end of the day. We're going to pull up Netflix charts. And, you know, if Netflix comes out within the time that we're still on, then definitely we'll bring that to you. But Netflix between, 240.50 and 241 for the time being. Let's see what this is going to bring after the market.
Tony, you check your messages about the Raptors? What's that? Keep talking, Arun. You check your messages about the Raptors?
They're talking about something. We got 20 seconds left, so I got to fill some time. Okay, futures market. Let's just set some levels for tomorrow. 36.90 on the bottom end, 37.80 for the top. We'll deal with this market after market because, you know, it's going to be interesting. What's happening here?
Get it on, Tony. We got 10 seconds to go. The countdown is on in 5, 4, 3, 2, and ring it. And there it is, Tony. I was just talking to Tony about the Raptors. We're trying to go to a Raptors game a little bit later on. But again, another 50 memberships. Claim them. I think you have to. I think at the beginning when you go into the chat, you actually have to enable accept gifts to get these 50. But so incredibly generous there. And whoa, Netflix! Netflix just popped 241 to 255. And then back down to 50, up to 260. They've clearly, well, I mean, I'm going to assume it's a beat on the top and bottom. You might not have had some numbers.
You may have spoke too soon. You may have spoke too soon. This is what happens when you run your mouth too early. This happens in aftermarket reports because there's a lot. Keep in mind, there's the actual top line, bottom line. So you got to pay attention to a lot of information. Netflix all over the place right now. All the way to 260, all the way down to 230, back to 250 is still yet to be processed. So we'll just wait for this one to actually settle up a little bit here.
I feel like somebody fat-fingered that.
Oh, now we go back up to the upside here, 265, 266.
So if
are we going to stay?
What can happen sometimes here is somebody's in before all the information that they get, and they go too big, and you get a breakdown, and they got to liquidate. So even if it's good, they get stuck off base here. Brendan, you got the numbers?
Beat right across the board, guys. Looks good. Yeah, top and bottom line, subscriber numbers, forward-looking. Yeah, fourth quarter revenues, $7.8 billion, which might be a little bit weak, but everything's beat. Top and bottom lines, again, sub numbers all better than expected.
I was telling Arun, this happened on Qualcomm it was mid last year, early last year, where it was earnings beat across the board. It was going up, and someone clearly bet way too big, and then all of a sudden you see them trying to cover in the aftermarket, trying to sell with way too much size. They drove it down. Qualcomm turned red. I'm thinking someone got in too big too early, got spooked, got out of it when they didn't get all the numbers. But yeah, nice little beat. Netflix, the implied volatility was 13%, so really, it actually hasn't, in some ways, it hasn't moved that much. Worth noting, 24 into 268. Sorry, is that 12% exactly? No, it's more like 11%. So from close to 268, just shy of the implied volatility. Great look for Netflix. I think this could give some strength. Watch out for Disney tomorrow for some sympathy plays on that name as well. Of course, you know how it is. We got to get out of here. I want to shout out to not just Arun for filling some big shoes for Sean in the afternoon, but if you tuned in, Sean taking care of his family today. One of his kids wasn't feeling too well. He had to be at his daughter's cross-country meet to support her and get her there. So a big day for him as a dad. But also Luca filling in the morning show and doing a great job. So to everybody out here, Trader Pratt going nuts, Sharif, who will be going on vacation end of the week, to the entire team at the board here. I do see us, everyone in there. Now we got the 3-pip in there. We're talking Mark. We got Juan up there, Lucas and Fahad as well. Before I say Brendan, are there any last words on Netflix?
The Q4 forward-looking sub number was a slight miss. That was the only problem. The Q4 forward-looking sub number was a slight miss, but everything else was good.
So I kind of think they might be moving away from the subs mattering as much when they go to the ad base. And I think that's why they might shrug off that subs thing and still run to the upside. But thank you, Brendan. He's always giving you the news all day long. As we said, fantastic job across the board. I'm Neil Roberts. That's Brendan. This is Arun filling in for my man Sean Katina. We'll see you guys. We're Trader TV Live, and we'll see you tomorrow morning, 8:30.